we do the roll call, please?
Hernandez.
Here.
Mendoza.
Here.
Tanya Rudy.
Here.
Owen.
Here.
Carta.
Here. Can we do, Sergio, do you have the motion for?
I move that the Board of Education move it, sorry. Where am I? I move that the Board approve tonight's agenda as presented.
Second? Second.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Mendoza.
Yes.
Tanya Rudy.
Yes.
Owen.
Yes.
Carta.
Yes. Okay, before we start the formal discussion and presentation tonight, Dr. Gorin, do you want to get started with the...
I do. And, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our meeting. As you may know, in October, District 65 launched an exciting new program to recognize our licensed staff members and our educational support staff members who continually go above and beyond the call of duty in support of their colleagues, their students, and our families. This program was designed with the goal of publicly acknowledging the incredibly dedicated members of our broad team and to engage our community in the important work happening throughout our school district day in and day out. Tonight, I have the pleasure of officially kicking off this new program by recognizing our first two recipients, Ms. Margaret Rhoda, social worker at Nichols Middle School, as the recipient in our licensed class staff category, and Ms. Sonia Werner, paraprofessional here at JEH Early Childhood Center in the educational support staff category. And please join me in a round of applause. A very exciting program called High Five. And when we introduced this, we received nearly 60 nominations for the program in our first month. There were a number of really strong entries, and we're excited for the potential to recognize some of these staff members in the coming months as potential recipients. I would also like to thank both District 65 staff members and family members who took the time to submit heartfelt and thoughtful entries. Before we bring up our two recipients and the people who submitted nominations on their behalf, I would like to recognize and publicly thank a tremendous partner, First Bank and Trust, for their generous support of this program. Tonight we have Paul Kogel, Senior Vice President, here with us to share a few remarks and join us in recognizing these really outstanding and dedicated individuals. When I approached the leadership of the bank, they were more than willing and they were truly excited to collaborate on this program with us and felt that it was an opportunity to further invest in their community. On behalf of our school board and our administration and all of our staff, we are deeply grateful for the continued partnership with First Bank and Trust. I'd like Paul to come up to the podium and share a few remarks.
Good evening. I tell you, we are so proud and so excited to be a part of this program. I have to share on a personal note, I have a daughter, as Paul knows, who's a fourth grade teacher out in District 59. And I think every time I talk with her about how her day went, she has a story about how much support she gets from her staff, support staff, the people in the office. She just goes on and on about the teamwork and how very important it is. And I think that sets a great role model for the children. And so we're really, really excited to be part of this recognition and look forward to doing this every month during the school year, right? So
We'll look forward to it.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I think
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
So thank you, Paul. And what's really spectacular about the partnership with First Bank and Trust is that we're able to provide our staff members with well-deserved recognition without using any district funds. Our recipients will receive a $75 Visa gift card, a framed recognition certificate signed by Suni Karta and myself on behalf of the board and behalf of the administration, and they'll be invited to attend a celebratory lunch for all of the year's recipients this coming May. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Sarah Warren and High Five recipient, Ms. Margaret Rhoda, up to the podium. Dr. Warren wrote a compelling nomination for Ms. Rhoda on how she truly makes a difference for her family. Ms. Rhoda is a longtime District 65 staff member, having served our students and families for over 25 years. She has worked at several of our middle and elementary schools and currently serves as a social worker at Nichols School. Dr. Warren has some remarks that she would like to share based on her nomination, and please join me in welcoming them both to the mic.
Thanks. When I saw the email soliciting nominations, I was really thrilled because 2 or 3 years ago, I sent an email to Dr. Gorin and to Principal Harries saying that I wanted to nominate Margaret Rhoda for I think the subject line was something like the Golden Apple Award for social work staff, something like that. So, and then I said I thought that this award should be created and that it should honor Margaret Rhoda and those like her who I think literally are saving lives. Both of my kids have struggled. One who left for ETHS this year, and I've got a 7th grader now at Nichols, and both of them have benefited from her really kind of round-the-clock, year-round support. She has made phone calls at night, and on weekends, she called in and checked on my older son during the summer to see how he was doing. This was after he had gone to an intensive outpatient program twice in a matter of months, and was missing, I think that year he missed 1/3 of the days of school. She just demonstrated such an extraordinary level of personal concern. And I really think that it got my son through, my older son, through 3 really brutal years in his life. And I felt like she was part of the village that was raising my kids and helping me, even though I was the one who was up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure that he was home and hadn't gone and done something like walked into the lake, which was one of my fears. I felt like she was really in the trenches. And she doesn't just do that for my 2 redheaded rascals. She does it for so many kids, and not just on a one-to-one basis, but she basically runs a drop-in center for kids who are crying in the bathroom, kids who are cutting themselves, kids who want to kill themselves, kids who just sort of don't feel like they fit in. And there they find each other, and there they take care of each other. So she helps them take care of each other, which is also an amazing thing, which kind of spreads her impact, right? It's not just her with individual students, but she's helping the other kids really offer meaningful help to each other. And those relationships end up really sustaining the kids who are struggling. And not only does she go so above and beyond, I mean, I don't even know how she does it. I mean, she's got a family of her own. But she also manages to get the really tedious administrative stuff done. So, you know, I've got one kid on a 504, and I had one on an IEP, and she gets those plans out, and they're really good, and she does it in a timely way. So it's just the range of things that she is providing for this school are really amazing. And I say to my kids, and they say to me on a regular basis, we don't know where we'd be without her. We really cannot imagine life without her. So I just can't say enough about how happy I am to have nominated her and to have her be recognized for her extraordinary contributions.
Really, Thank you, Dr. Warren. It's really amazing the positive impact that Margaret's had on your children. I've seen Margaret in action, and she makes a difference in the lives of kids each and every day. And it's just, we couldn't be more proud of the work that you do here at District 65. And on behalf of the board, Suni and I are going to come and give you your award.
Don't forget the high five.
Now I'd like to invite Ms. Shannon Boatwright and high five recipient Ms. Sonia Werner to come up to the podium. Ms. Boatwright is one of our educators at Dawes and shared her experience working alongside Sonia for 3 years. Ms. Werner is also a veteran staff member, having served our District 65 students and families since 2002. She currently serves as a paraprofessional and works with our youngest learners here in JAH Early Childhood, in the Early Childhood Center. Ms. Boatwright has also prepared some remarks to share with us this evening, so join me in welcoming both of them to the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I actually thought I was going to read my nomination. I'm glad I didn't, because I was pretty teary-eyed when I was typing it at home, and it would have been emotional. But I had the pleasure of working side by side with Sonia for a couple of years when I was doing self-contained cross-cat. And for that population of students, it takes more, for all of our students, it takes more than just teaching them academics. But for that particular group of children, they need a lot of love and special care. And as I was reading the requirements for the high five, when it said above and beyond, that's when. She has it every single day. She came in ready, smiling, ready for the children, ready for a new challenge, ready to learn, ready to give everything that she had. And she was my right arm, not only in her ability to care for the children and learn them and build relationships with them, something that I'm working on now with a lot of people, but also in watching my practice and watch what I do so that she could extend that learning outside of our classroom when she was working in small groups, all of the above. When they left the classroom to be supported in any other area, I always knew that they were going to get exactly what they needed, not more, not less, exactly what they needed. And you know, her job required that she came in at 9 and left at 3:30, but she was there with me in the evenings when we were thinking and worrying about these children. Sonia was right there with me. And so I truly believe, I know that the students that you touched are better for it. And now that she's at JAH, it's really exciting that she is here with the young students, getting to really instill that in them, that empowerment, that intrinsic positive knowledge of self, because I know that's what she's doing with them every single day. And selfishly, we're both in different positions this year, and I couldn't have done it without her. And I look at that class now and I think, man, what would I have done without, Sonia by my side? We became family with each other and with our students. And so there's no one that I immediately saw Sonia and scrolled down and started typing what I did, because there's no one I could think of that goes above and beyond every single day for our District 65 students. And we need more of her. If we could duplicate you, goodness. So I'm very honored to be the one to nominate you for this. Well deserved.
And again, this is such a wonderful example of not only making a difference in the lives of children every day, but making a difference in the lives of your colleagues every day. And we're just, on behalf of the district, on behalf of First Bank and Trust, we're so proud of you for everything you do for kids here in Evanston and Skokie. So if we could, let's have one more round of applause for our high five winners. To Melissa Messenger and Beatrice Davis, who've actually helped to coordinate this program. And we have 60 nominations, and so we have heartfelt notes and letters about our colleagues across the district, and really just take the moment to recognize the fantastic things that go in and day out is something really special. And we will salute again First Bank and Trust, Paul and his colleagues, and we'll look forward to the luncheon that we have in May to honor all of our high fivers as we go through the year. So with that, let me do a few more comments and really sort of get into the comments that I normally do around some of the work that we do on equity. I think as some of you know, we are continuing a significant amount of training here in the district with staff members from the board members, the board president, superintendent, and others doing seed training and beyond diversity training. And we're continuing that through this year and into the summer. Tonight on the agenda, we have two issues that have emerged. One is the two-way Immersion Spanish-English program, and then out of that conversation has started and continued actually dialogue and some commentary around serving families in Evanston's Fifth Ward. On the TWE piece, as we will entertain the recommendation again later on. This is a process that has been going on for over 4 years. The recommendation to expand the TWE program has been brought to the board 3 times, and it's really to provide TWE according to the best practices by which it is structured with fidelity. It's to provide the program to those who have the greatest needs, and in order to do so, we must add 2 additional strands to the TWE program. Our recommendation after extensive analysis is to implement the TWE programming at Bessie Rhodes and really to underscore the global studies focus that goes on there. As we've explored this issue, the thought of a new school and indeed the thought of a Fifth Ward school has surfaced. And I want to just state publicly that I'm very committed to working to address the needs of Fifth Ward families and children, especially given the history here in Evanston. A couple clarifications, though, as we move into that conversation. One is to build a new school, we need to go to referendum. To buy a new school, we need to go to referendum. And to lease and operate a new school, regardless of building or leasing, or building or buying, but to lease and operate a new school, we need to have significant revenues. And the only way to have those significant revenues would be to potentially close the school. And I just want to be clear about those parameters as we move forward. On TWE, what we've done and what we're doing tonight is we will provide background on our decision process, how we looked at every school, and how we ended up with Bessie Rhodes and Dawes and for a number of reasons, as we considered both of those schools we decided to go with Bessie Rhodes and not include Dawes, since Dawes is a neighborhood school, and we felt that it was really important to keep the neighborhood school intact. We've responded to concerns that were raised over the last couple of sessions and in some of our parent meetings to strengthen the global studies focus that has frankly needed strengthening over the years, and to keep Mandarin, and you'll see that as part of the recommendation here. On the ideas that are emerging around serving families in the Fifth Ward, I think those are spectacular ideas. And again, as I said, we have to consider if we're building or if we're renovating the foster school and moving in or buying, that has to go to public referendum. We can't, as an entity, purchase or build a new school. And if we lease or operate a new school setting, we have to find those resources. It's about $2.5 million on average to operate a new school, and so we would have to leverage $2.5 million from our budget. I want to, and am willing to, and I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight, dig deep onto the issues around educating our kids and our families in the Fifth Ward. And yet, I also believe that we need to move forward on the two strands in TWE so we can provide those services with fidelity as we promise to the community. So I wanted to set that as a preface, and it really does relate to all of the equity work that we're doing as we are going forward as a district.
Thank you, Dr. Gorin. I want to open up, are there any other board comments that you want to share?
Sure. I just wanted to share, I actually attended two really great meetings. One was with the MSAC committee, which is, and I saw you there, Suni, as well. I know they had a meeting this earlier in the evening, which we weren't able to attend, but the last one was very great. So MSAC stands for Minority Student Academic Achievement Committee. And this is a group of educators and administrators who are getting together and are having conversations about, student achievement, right? And is part of this, some of this grassroots equity work that I think might have been going on even before some of the equity work that we've embarked on officially as a district. And just wanted to, send kudos to that group that has, that's really engaging our staff. And then again, it's all peers that really are talking about how to best serve our most marginalized students. And I also attended the GC group, which is the Gender and Sexual Educator Alliance meeting last week. Again, another remarkable group. I know they put out a video that talks about what equity means to each member. And again, this is all staff, and they're putting out a newsletter that's kind of informing and educating our community and fellow staff members and board and administrators around issues that impact them. And those two examples to me are kind of really powerful, and it really speaks to how this equity work is really kind of taking root in our district, across our with students, parents, educators, all kind of taking up the helm and really trying to meet up the challenge in regards to trying to answer some questions that have plagued our community in regards to inequity. And I just want to commend our administrators, our cabinet, our District 65 staff, our superintendent, and just my fellow board members who, again, have decided to take on this very, very difficult work. And as you'll see, and as we've seen in these conversations, again, this is not easy work. There's some tough questions that we're going to have to ask ourselves. I ask that we're all respectful to one another. Again, there's folks who can't be in this room. I know a lot of folks who are working second, third shift jobs who, again, just like you, and just like us, who just can't be here and aren't able to have a voice and really be considerate of those folks who can't be here and voice their concerns. Who I have been able to talk to and have felt a little bit left out, a little bit, just not comfortable with how some of our conversations have unfolded with, around racial equity. But, that is kind of the nature of the work. And I just advise us all, as community members, to be very respectful to one another.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Thank you. With that, we will move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Members of the public are welcome and invited to address the board during open public meetings. The Board of Education will not permit the voicing of personal attacks against any district employee. Please remember to state your name and that you have 3 minutes to address the board. At the end of 3 minutes, you'll hear a timer go off and we'll ask that you wrap up your statements at that time. And also, we do have Spanish translation available. Amy, would you like to make an announcement?
Well, just if there's anyone here that needs translation in Spanish.
Do you want an announcement in Spanish?
Y si necesitan traducción en español, por favor.
Ay, perdón.
Okay, thank you. Okay. With that, our first speaker will be Tad Block.
Good evening, my name is Tad Block and I live at 719 Custer. I'm assuming did you guys get a copy of the, presentation that several parents are going to be running through this evening?
It's coming around.
There you go. Oh, perfect. I'll guess that.
Go ahead and, yeah.
Well, once you get past the cover page, the first page is a picture of a woman you guys may have known, Dr. Bessie Rhodes. She was she started off at as a kindergarten teacher at my alma mater, King Lab, which is now King Arts, and she became the first principal of, back then it was called Timber Ridge, but now it's Bessie Rhodes. And to honor her name and heritage, we're going to present this a proposal, some of the parents. First, the next slide is a quick timeline. We're going to run through this kind of quickly. We only have 3 minutes. Just to kind of highlight a lot of the changes that have gone on in the school. School year 2008-2009, Ms. Mitchell was the principal. The following year, she retired. And Mr. Ewing was the interim principal. And the district started investigating a new magnet school focus for the school. A year after that, Mr. Harris became principal, and global studies was identified as the choice of the direction for the school. The following year, again, another Mr. Harris resigned, and Mr. Mendez was picked to be the interim principal. He stuck around for a little bit, but then shortly after that, as you can see on the following slide, in the school year of 2013-2014, he left, but Mrs. S, and also as you see here, Mrs. Sokolowski was, excuse me, put in as assistant principal. The year after that, Dr. Gorham was elected to be superintendent of District 65, and Bessie Rhodes had 2 co-interim principals, Ms. Miller and Ms. Johnson. Ms. Sokolowski was still there, Mrs. S. Again, the year after that, Ms. Norwood was picked to be principal, and Mrs. Sokolowski was her assistant principal. The following year, Ms. Sokolowski went over to Dewey, and now we have Mr. Condon as our assistant principal, and now we're going into discussing another change for Bessie Rhodes to become an all-to-be school. I'm going to pass the floor on to the next presenter.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker will be Donna Sue.
Good evening. My name is Donna Wang Su, 9414 Harding Avenue. My partner Kwan and I have 2 children, a 3rd grader at Bessie Rhodes and a kindergartner. So kind of going off of what Mr. Tad Block was talking about with this timeline, you have just seen a tremendous amount of change. As someone who does strategic planning and change management, we all understand that when we nominate leadership, I'll take the US presidency, we nominate a team, a VP and a president, and we give them 4 years to have effective change. And at Bessie Rhodes, we have not had this kind of leadership last long enough to really assess before going through more change, whether it's a change in leadership, change in focus, change in curriculum. On the next slide, Bessie Rhodes really is a wonderful example of diversity here in District 65. I've been researching all the elementary schools for the last 5 years, visited all of them, realized how wonderful each one was. And for me, when I entered Bessie Rhodes and I just saw this beautiful blend, for those of you that might not see this chart, it shows that Bessie Rhodes is 37% Black, 28% white. We are 13% Latino, 9% Asian, and 13% multiracial. And this is all based off of the District 65 reports from last year. Based on an informal survey, families speak such a variety of languages at home, and you'll see there all the different global languages. And one reason why my partner and I really picked Bessie Rhodes, not just because of the Mandarin, but because us as Chinese Americans, we've had to face so much. I don't know if you know, but for 63 years, there was a Chinese Exclusion Act that meant no one could immigrate here from any Chinese-speaking countries. And then when they lifted that until the 1970s, they allowed 105 Chinese-speaking immigrants a year. So to be able to overcome that and have the culture, because Ms. Zhang at Bessie Rhodes doesn't just teach about the language, she teaches about the culture, the history. My kids are learning how to play this Chinese game I've never played before. She's teaching them about paper cutting and they get to eat foods. It's amazing, and people are sharing about theirs. What we are looking at with the TWE classrooms, Stacy Beardsley was wonderful to be at our last parent meeting and answer many of our questions. One question was, we do want to get to that 50-50 breakdown in the TWE classrooms, because we do want that educational equity for all of our students to have the best success to succeed. And we did ask, what is the breakdown of the non-Spanish speakers? And right now, the TWE is currently at 80% white. So I do ask you, as parents, as board members, what would you have Bessie Rhodes family react to? We haven't had stable leadership. Our kids are currently in this very diverse way, and we're getting to the point where the ones incoming, is there going to be equal educational equity for both sides, both this group and then this TWE group? Is that what's equitable? Is that what's best for both sides too? Because we're still not addressing the other side. And Henry will talk next.
Actually, next on is Olga Borovsky.
Good evening. Can you hear me? My name is Olga Borovsky. My address is 1320 Main Street in Evanston. I'm a parent of twin second graders at Bessie Rhodes, and I'd like to talk about a survey that a group of parents like myself has emailed out to the parents of current Bessie Rhodes students, as well as a petition on change.org that was started by the same group. So I'm here to share the results of both tonight. The petition on change.org was launched on November 5th and remains open today. The total number of signatures against the TWE expansion at Bessie Rhodes is currently at 363 signatures. An online survey to Bessie Rhodes families was opened from November 9th through November 15th, and 127 surveys were completed. So bear with me, there's a little bit to go through here. When asked what is your neighborhood school, the respondents answered 16% Lincoln, 16% Oakton, 39% Walker. All other elementary schools are between 1% and 6%. The results indicate that if TWE expansion is to take place, 18% of respondents will stay at Bessie Rhodes, 12% will stay for the first year to see how things work out, 18% weren't sure, 53% will leave the school if the change is to take place. According to 2017 Illinois report card, African American students at Bessie Rhodes outperform the district average. Among African American families who completed the survey, 25% will be keeping their children at Bessie Rhodes. 18% weren't sure. 14% will stay for the first year to see how things work out, and 43% will be leaving. Many concerns included: too many changes have taken place at the school already. 13% will leave for that reason. School will become less diverse. Mandarin will no longer be offered. Loss of global studies focus, 10% will leave for that reason. Younger children will be in a completely different program than their older siblings already at the school. Only 11% of those families will send their younger children to Bessie Rhodes if the change was to occur. 89% of respondents said that they're extremely concerned about teacher morale and teachers leaving before their grade is changed over to TWE. 94% of parents surveyed said that they were not given enough notice about the changes. 83% of parents were unaware of these changes prior to November 1st. 83% believe that the change will have a negative impact on the school. I'm sorry, I have one more point to make. 30 families stated that they already speak more than one language at home, and another language would be too much to handle. 93% of these families believe that this change will have a negative impact on the school. 60% of these families will leave Bessie Rhodes. Thank you.
Thank you. Henry Wilkins.
Good evening. I'm Henry Wilkins. I live at 8625 Central Park Avenue in Skokie. As Olga pointed out, this proposal creates inequity among blacks. And this ethnic group is who you are targeting to bring into TWE. As such, we have a proposal that we think better addresses the inequity, not only for blacks, but also for Hispanics. More specifically, we are recommending that District 65 develop a strategic partnership to create a community school with the current tenets of the family-focused building. You might ask, well, what is a community school? So if you look at the diagram in your handout, there's a circle, and in the center is a pictorial of a community school. What it is the school is used as a central hub, and surrounding it you have educators, families, and community partners to offer a range of opportunities, support, and services to children, youth, as well as their families and communities. They provide expanded learning opportunities not just during the day, but after school, and on the weekend, and in the summer. The white-colored circles represent some of the tenants in the family-focused building, and they would provide what we call wraparound services for this community school. The wraparound services would include the YMCA, which provides literacy program for Head Start, ages 3 to 5, Northwestern University, which provides cradle to career training, and Oakton Community College provides English as a second language. Dr. Boren just mentioned that a standalone school costs $2.5 million. When you have a community school, those costs are either eliminated or significantly reduced. There's an opportunity for the strategic partnership to be done with minimal cost. For example, by pulling together expenses, the cost of custodial staff will be shared by the tenants of the community school, such as CETA. In addition, partners such as YMCA could donate directly to District 65 for the operating expenses. Partners such as Northwestern University could provide some of the support staffing, such as a speech therapist from the linguistics department, or leveraging the School of Music to provide music lessons for students, just to name a few examples. In terms of the benefits for this, the kids would not have to be bused to the school. They can live in their neighborhoods. Number two, as Dr. Boren just mentioned, you can get away without a referendum if you lease with a third party. And third, the arrangement for this TWE community school gets you closer to TWE compliance for District 65. And now I'm going to turn it over to John to show and reinforce why the Fifth Ward location is the optimal location for a TWE expansion.
Thank you. John Morris.
Thanks, Henry. John Morris. I live at 2145 Pioneer Road. I have 2 children at Bessie Rhodes, a daughter in 1st grade and a son in 3rd grade. What I wanted to share with you guys is, to follow up on what Henry said, a bit more information on the analysis we did in the geographic benefits or advantages that the Fifth Ward has. If you look in page 12, and apologies for those here who can't see it, you'll see a depiction of the district with the attendance areas also outlined. What you'll see in the orange is where you have TWE strands already supported. In areas where you see no orange, that's areas where there's no TWE support. The percentages you see there are from the same information that was leveraged in the recommendation to the board, showing where we have Hispanic identifying families within the census blocks. You'll see clearly that Walker, Lincolnwood, and Kingsley have significant presence, but do not have a TWE strand. So these kids represent some of the most underserved kids who then have to travel out of the district, or sorry, out of their attendance area to be able to access TWE. You'll see that the Fifth Ward outlined in green here is centrally located amongst all these areas. They're directly within the Lincolnwood attendance area, the Kingsley area, and adjacent to the Walker area. These represent not only current kids, but also the highest and fastest growing areas as referred to in the recommendation, with 35% for Lincolnwood and 14.5% for Kingsley. So these are growing areas. You'll see that the Fifth Ward covers both Lincolnwood and Kingsley. Additionally, in doing analysis that we found in the data in the recommendation, currently this represents 56% of the kids who actually travel, English learners who travel to a TWE school that offers a TWE strand, traveling out of their neighborhoods. So this would allow them to stay within their neighborhood and access these services. So thank you. That concludes the comments. I'm going to turn it over to Mark to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Rochon.
Hi, I'm Mark Rochon, 1836 Hoveland. To kind of follow up on John and some of the other parents, what they've said, I guess I just wanted to start a little. I've been in Evanston almost 20 years. I went to Northwestern. When it came time to have kids and family and all that kind of stuff, I moved back here. So I've been around the community a long time. I've seen a lot of the changes. And I think as the parents have shown that Bessie Rhodes currently is a very special place. And I feel like with the current proposal out there, we're missing out on some opportunities. For one, the opportunity to really connect with the Bessie Rhodes current parents. I currently have a second grader and a first grader. And unfortunately right now, I mean, just because we don't know what our global studies will look like right now, I'm more inclined to leaving the school. So I think we really missed out on an opportunity to really talk to parents, understand what makes Bessie Rhodes special, and work with them and maybe come up with some more concrete plans. Because I don't feel like the current proposal right now really has those concrete recommendations on how to kind of integrate TWE with the global studies program. And then secondly, I think as we've talked a little bit about and heard about, we're missing an opportunity to really bring a school back to the Fifth Ward and the opportunities that could be there. And I know there's a lot of financial things related to that, but I think to really more seriously consider that. And I guess at the very least, I know that, you guys have to vote in the next, couple weeks, and things are moving very quickly, but if there's any way to even if it's just like a month delay, to kind of take that opportunity to really look at what we have here, work more with parents, and figure out a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jessica Littman.
Hi, I'm Jessica Littman, 2130 Central Park Avenue, and I'm here tonight along with parents of other fourth graders at Lincolnwood Elementary School to seek the board's help in resolving an ongoing and pressing safety issue. Since the start of this year, children in this grade have been punched and pushed. Chairs have been pulled out from under them. They have been subjected to verbal abuse, such as obscene language, derogatory slurs, and threats. They have seen their peers harm school property and been disturbed by the theft of hurricane relief money that they raised. They have been hit in the face repeatedly with gym balls, had food thrown at them, and been touched inappropriately. As a result of the violence that our children regularly witness or are subjected to at school, they have suffered not only physical harm, but have also experienced severe emotional distress. One boy hid in his locker to avoid being abused. Another child wrote to a friend that she feels uncomfortable at school and would like to transfer. One family moved their son to private school after seeing him develop severe anxiety about attending Lincolnwood. One girl has developed a nervous tic since she began attending Lincolnwood this year. And still another child began therapy to help him cope with the stress he is experiencing. Such problems are so widespread that 35 parents representing 20 different Lincolnwood fourth graders signed a letter of concern addressed to the school board on November 14th. We cannot allow this situation to continue. The violence and disorder at Lincolnwood is in direct violation of District 65 policy set forth in the Student Code of Conduct. The code explicitly prohibits any kind of bullying or aggressive behavior that does physical or psychological harm to a staff person or another student. Because the board is charged with setting and reinforcing vision and values for all schools in the district, we come before you to request your help in upholding district values and rectifying this situation. To that end, we request that the board immediately support us in directing administrators to secure an additional full-time aide for all the children in Mr. Chet Williams' class. We ask that the board direct district officials to continue to monitor this situation closely and provide additional resources should the situation fail to improve. To be clear, we are not advocating that any specific punitive measure be enacted against any particular student. Rather, it is our hope that additional supervision for the class as a whole will prevent future violence and disorder in the near future. Looking forward, we would like to learn more about the district's efforts to address culture and climate at neighborhood schools. To that end, we also propose a series of ongoing community conversations on this topic.
Thank you.
It is our belief that these two measures will foster the kind of equitable, safe environment in which all of our children can flourish.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lauren Gradnicki.
My name is Lauren Gradnicki. I live at 3636 Enfield Avenue. I wanted to talk today about the diversity among the teachers at Bessie Rhodes and also in the TWEET program. I'd also like to speak a little bit about how global the TWEET program is and whether or not it's appropriate to say that it is in fact going to enhance our global studies at Bessie Rhodes. According to cmap.illinois.gov, 40% of immigrants to Illinois are from Mexico, and of the immigrants from Spanish-speaking countries that made their top 20 or so list, that means about 90% of the Spanish-speaking immigrants are from one country. So to say that, oh, we have students from 14 different countries who are native Spanish speakers, it doesn't really capture the whole picture and is kind of misleading. Other speakers have drawn attention to the difference between the ethnic makeup of students in the TWEET program and that of Bessie Rhodes. I'm going to talk, like I mentioned before, about the teachers. At Bessie Rhodes, there are at least 3 African-American elementary school teachers, each teaching a different grade out of the 12 teachers up through that grade. In addition, the principal is African-American. When this came up in a conversation with one of the leaders of Opal, she was surprised that any of the teachers were African-American at Bessie Rhodes. Corey Wallace pointed out in her equity report that very few teachers across the district are African-American. Across the 3 TWEET schools I was able to get in touch with, 17% of the TWEET teachers are Caucasian, 5% are Asian, 78% are Latino, and none are African-American. Not only will making Bessie Rhodes a wall-to-wall TWEET school decrease overall student diversity, it will decrease the racial diversity among the teachers. In addition, Corey Wallace made a point about busing and a lack of a neighborhood school being a problem for many African-American students. Making Bessie Rhodes an all-TWEET school will only make the busing issue worse, and it will take away one of the advantages of a neighborhood school in the 5th Ward. She also highlighted the isolation of TWEET strands being a problem and recommended that you, quote, strengthen and fully integrate the Afrocentric curriculum and TWEET, e.g. creating schools where TWEET and ACC are combined into a single instructional approach, end quote. The school in the Fifth Ward is a perfect opportunity to implement the recommendations of the person that you hired to assess equity in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Shohet Zabin.
I'm Jacqueline Shohet Zabin, and I live at 2108 Forest View. And I have a fourth grader at Lincolnwood with a very serious medical condition. I'm concerned about the behavior and safety issues that the fourth grade has been dealing with. I'm very concerned that if my son were to get hit, there would be very serious medical consequences. For the safety of all the children and the teachers, I'm requesting that the board work with us to ensure that Lincolnwood is a safe place for all children and for everyone.
Thank you. Kristen Huzar.
Hi, I'm Kristen Huzar. I live at 1724 Hovland Court. I'm a parent of a current fourth grader at Lincolnwood, and my son has been there since kindergarten. We live in the Fifth Ward, so I was pleased to learn that we'd be bused to Lincolnwood because it had a good reputation. My son has been really lucky to have fantastic teachers during his time at the school. However, our time here has not been smooth. For the last 2 years, the school has been at a loss as to how to deal with a higher than normal percentage of kids in this now fourth grade cohort who have some serious social and emotional issues. There was a group of concerned parents who met with administrators at the school and district when the kids were in second grade to try to get extra support for students and teachers who were dealing with some major behavioral issues. Because of the lack of effective response from the school leadership, several families decided to leave the district altogether. This was a loss as these families were heavily involved in volunteering for the PTA and in classrooms and for fluency tutors, etc. My son has hemophilia. It's a serious medical condition. During the past 2 years at school, he has been hit, slapped, or punched at least 4 times. Luckily, these incidents did not require a trip to the hospital, but as the kids get older and stronger, I'm afraid that's where we're headed. When I ask my kid how his day was, he either says, "Good, nobody got in a fight or used bad words today," or he reports things like theft of fundraising money, fist fights during specials or in the lunchroom, or certain students being targeted for bullying. It's a pretty low bar. My kid has been exposed to swearing, physical violence, and threats. He no longer feels safe at school. Many days he comes home sensitive, tearful, and agitated. Last week, my little peace-loving dude has been described by his teachers as warm, kind, and thoughtful, and one of the nicest kids in the class actually hit another child on the playground. This is a red flag for me. When a kid who has been taught that it is never okay to respond with violence starts to lash out with violence, it seems obvious that the culture of the school has evolved into an atmosphere of fight or flight. I'm beseeching the board to provide concrete ways to relieve this situation and help heal the entire community. What has been tried in the past has not worked. I encourage you to consider some of the options that the Lincolnwood parents have come up with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ron Ruddock.
Good evening. I live at 2303 Foster Street. My daughter is in the same class, and I talked to you, what was it, last week? Okay, I have one question. Seriously, how hard is it to separate? You see, Jessica, you advocate more support of them. That's good. I mean, support is good, but I'm tired of hearing about supports. I don't want to hear about support anymore. How hard it is to just separate them. Because, like, one day, 3 same kids had 4 fights in one day. Over time, it's apparent that the problem isn't about support or lack thereof. It's about the fact that these kids don't mesh well. They don't get along. So separate them. The fact that in the beginning, one of those students wasn't in the class, but he ended up in the class. So I figured, well, he came in, therefore he can go back. It's simple. And it's not about color, because I know in the past everyone's saying, oh, it's because they're a minority, but it's not. Because I may be Jamaican, but here I check the same box that they do. And I see their behavior as a problem. It's not about color. There comes a point when you have to call a spade, regardless of what color the deck is. You have to call it a spade. And that's what I'm saying. I'm really tired. My daughter was the one who was touched inappropriately. And I'm extreme, and the more I think about it, the madder I get. And honestly, like I tell you before, if the day should come again where my daughter, when I pick her up from school and she should tell me that someone or some touch her again, honest to dear God, I'm bringing hell itself down on this district. I'm not playing anymore. You see, every day, you see, all from kindergarten all the way through 3rd grade, my daughter loves school. Dear Amen, she loves school. 4th grade, it's all downhill from there, all downhill. Every day now, it's like, you see, I'm tired, you know, you guys talk to the parents, but I think it's time for you to talk to the kids and really see how they feel. Talk to my daughter and let her tell you exactly how she feels. You know, talk to her at the end of each day to tell you exactly, well, you know, whoever had an outburst, or how she had to duck under her desk, or someone took a chair to throw across the room, or someone threw a book where she had to duck. Honestly, I'm tired of those things. She's in school. She's not in a war zone, that's school. And I want to know that when I'm at work and she's at school, I want to feel that, I want to know that she's safe. But honestly, right now, every day I'm looking at my phone. Normally, when I'm in my office, phone will be off. Now I keep my phone on the desk on a spot that I know it will get service, because I'm like, dear God, I know I might get a call from the school that something happened. She has a peanut allergy, and one of those students one day, he threw a PB&J sandwich and hit my daughter. She had a peanut, imagine, like I said, if I'm not playing, I'm tired. I'm tired, and it shouldn't be so difficult to separate some students. It shouldn't be. And I'm tired of hearing about support. Honest to God, I don't even like the word anymore. You see, today Ms. Bornay Thomas sent out an email about PBIS, and it's not working. Obviously, it's not working. It's obviously not working. You're going to retrain the staff? I don't think that's going to work either. These kids need to separate, and they need to separate now. Not tomorrow, no. But I think that's my time.
Dan Ferris. Dan Ferris.
Good evening. My name is Dan Ferris, 9521 Drake Avenue. My wife Kim and I have a 4th grader at Bessie Rhodes, and we've lived in Evanston for 15 years. Like most of the Rhodes parents and apparently administrators, teachers, and staff, my wife and I were surprised to read Dr. Gorin's email announcement that Bessie Rhodes would be converted to a bilingual school. We applied to Rhodes with the appeal of the diverse student population that seemed to reinforce the global studies name and curriculum, the low class sizes, and the outstanding teacher reputation. While we support programs like TWE to help a growing population in District 65, we believe that implementing this program at Rhodes will likely pull apart an already diverse and vibrant community and erode what now certainly has to be a low teacher morale. After reading the materials presented and attending 2 information sessions and the last board meeting, some questions came to my mind. Namely, how can 50% of anything be considered global? The answer to this seems to be coming back to us as there is diversity in the cultures within the Spanish-speaking community and countries. But no matter how you put a spin on this, 50% of the population takes away from a truly global community. Only one needs to attend an international night at this school to enjoy the many cultures that we enjoy that are present currently at Rhodes. We were told by Dr. Beardsley last Wednesday that there was no plan B to this proposal. How can there be no alternatives that would solve this issue and keep this great school intact? After 4 years of research to announce a proposal basically 1 month before a vote without input from parties affected is simply not fair to those who have made a commitment to this community we call Rhodes. The lack of inclusion before this last month of the entire Rhodes community for input in this decision is frankly appalling. What about the teachers who have invested years of their careers to this school? To suggest that someone could be certified to teach in a TWE program in less than 9 months' time is unrealistic. To ask someone to be reassigned to another school or bump someone from who currently is at that school and potentially teach at a grade or subject not their preference is to cheat our children of the best possible instruction and marginalizes that teacher's expertise. Will classes such as art, music, drama, library, and PE also need to be bilingual? Will administration and staff also need to be bilingual? If yes, will these changes be immediate next fall? How can you guarantee a diverse teaching pool in a bilingual environment? Are you truly going to get the best qualified teachers, not just the teachers who are best qualified with an ESL certification? I heard the comment made last meeting from a board member who said, in good conscience, this proposal shouldn't be ignored. However, how in good conscience and at what expense can you create such an upheaval in District 65 employees' lives in an already thriving, diverse, and global community? I've urged you to hold off on this proposal, find an alternative. We heard a really, really creative alternative in just a few weeks from our parents here, and what to do to the statement of equity and to do what's best for all students in District 65. Thank you for your time.
Roger Williams.
Good afternoon, or good evening rather, District 65 Board and Dr. Gorin and the staff. I'm going to take a little bit of departure of what most of the speakers have been speaking about this evening, but something that I think is just as important. Recently, Illinois District Report Card talks about academics in Illinois, and actually shows academics here, how we've been doing. And this is, just to give you a hint, as what's been happening is that the black children and the Latino children, the scores are once again at the very low. Here's something else. By the way, this report came out in October of this year. Now here's another report. Oh, that's okay. This another report came out back in 2016. It was a report on black student achievement in District 65. And what you have there, let me get this. What you have, two different reports, but the same results. They got two different formats in here, two different periods of time, but the results are the same. It's the same message. The black and brown student achievement gap is still a significant problem. And what was missing in 2016, as well as now in 2017, is that although you have this problem of the achievement gap, what you don't have are goals, plans, and programs that address this gap. And by the way, also a sense of urgency to deal with it as well. So the question I like to ask Dr. Gordon and the board, how much bad news do you have to hear before you actually will do something about it?
Thank you. Barry, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, Prowlier? I'm sorry, I don't think Barry? Oh, you didn't sign up? Oh, okay. Go on then to Lonnie Wilson.
What's interesting, Dr. Dorn, is you talked about cost. I want to kind of give you a little bit of memory about a cost. The generation that raised me, trying to find equity and inclusion, they tried to integrate a school, foster school. What happened was, it ended up shooting our neighborhood in the foot. We have never been the linchpin. Once you took away the linchpin, we've literally gone on a free fall ever since. I don't go to Lincolnwood, but I can tell you something. Those children that are causing that problem at Lincolnwood is because they were not raised in a village like I was. They don't understand their own cultural identity because you took the neighborhood school away from them. And we've done nothing but spin our heels for another 30 years trying to figure out how to solve the same problem. It's ridiculous. It would behoove you guys to find a partnership, put some money into that school, help it stay in the community, and help the Spanish and the African American and the Latino kids grow as well as the white kids have been growing in this town for as long as I've been here. And I've been here for 5 generations in different forms. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce King.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Bruce King. I was born in Evanston, lived right across the street. My father built that house 64 years ago. I learned to walk in it. My grandfather built the first house on Dodge in the 2000 block. All 9 of his kids went to foster school when it was all black. I went to Dewey School. Used to be called the Wesley Street School. One of the first integrated schools in America. And my mother and father separated and divorced. And we moved to the South Side. But my father had a house in the 5th Ward and we were able to move back. But I had to test back into District 65. And he put me in special ed. I was elated because it was all black. I mean, I get up in the morning and go to school and everybody looked like me. I didn't have a problem with saying and repeating what I meant. Well, one day, 2 of the black teachers were standing in the corner and they were talking and they said, well, you know, he can't really read, but his math and science scores are off the chain. So this lady took me to the 3rd floor. I was a bad kid. Yeah, real bad. All that. You guys talking about Lincolnwood? I lived that. God bless you. I hope you get it right. You know, they say a lot of things about all black schools, but we took care of one another. And I found out one day in after school gym, I could run, I could fight, I could play with the girls. I could take a dodgeball and hit you in your leg and knock you down. And I did. This kid walks up to me and he says, you know, everybody laughed. He says, you know what, Bruce, you might be able to fight, good with the girls, fast, but you can't read. I felt so short I could sit on a dime and wiggle my legs. I could have, I won't say, I could have beat him up, all right, and made it real. But I came up in a village, a real village. Imagine this. What do the elephants do when the lions come around? They get side to side, butt in, and the babies in that circle. That's how I came up. So, that boy helped me learn how to read. 6 months later, I was in the same first reading group. I graduated from high school, Kendall College. I'm still in college.
Thank you. Eric Weiss.
I enjoyed your statements. My name's Eric Weiss. I live at 2400 Payne Street, and my wife Lila Bacchus and I have 2 kids, a 1st grader and a 4th grader at Lincolnwood Elementary School. And so I'd like to echo some of the things that our friends have brought to you here. I have to say, I'm not from Evanston. My wife and I moved here in the aughts from the West Coast, and we were delighted to hear, oh, we're moving to what sounds like a diverse community, of course. course. And we were stunned to find that we lived in a neighborhood where 97% of our neighbors were white, right? And so that felt weird. Yeah, thanks. But I have to say, we're committed to try and do it differently. And we were delighted to see that Lincolnwood, the classes were diverse, and we actually enjoyed it, and we made lots of friends, and our kids made lots of friends, and they're comfortable in a diverse community now. I think it has a real impact, and has been great. We've had some amazing teachers who coaxed incredible performance. We saw first graders in Tracy Moll's class writing chapter books, black and white and brown and Asian and everything, just doing amazing things, right? So it's clearly capable. I mean, people can do this stuff, right? But this year, for some reason, and I think because the situation's been just completely mismanaged and not paid attention to in any kind of productive way, a violent culture has emerged among a very small group of students who for some reason are allowed to hang together and disrupt the learning environment and the students' sense of safety, right? I have to say, I was reluctant to do it because it's kind of a privacy issue, but my son is very highly academically achieving, but he suffers from an autism spectrum disorder. He has an IEP, and under the ADA, Section 504, he has special needs that have to be addressed by the district. And it was a struggle to get this done. It's no fun to convince the district that your child is broken, okay, and has disability. But he's loved his class until this year, when it's been clear to this group of people that they can target him, that they can wind him up, that they can call him names, that they can call him a retard and mental, they can punch him, they can humiliate him in public. My son's the one who shut himself in his locker to get away from it twice. They can destroy his property and just create chaos in the class in general. And my son has gone from enjoying his community to wanting to defend himself against it. And he won't even tell us about it. We had to learn from other children and from other parents, and hear from parents whose kids are getting punched and getting intimidated. And here's the thing, this isn't good for anybody. It's not good for the majority of students in the class who wish this wasn't going on, and it's not good for the kids who are getting together and propagating this violent behavior. It's not serving anyone, and it has, as you've heard, created a climate of mistrust in the community that has not been addressed. So it's to you now. You really have to address our loss of faith in your ability to deal with this kind of situation.
Kamika Okachukwu.
Good evening, I'm Kamika Okechukwu at 250 Ridge Avenue in Evanston. I have two children at Bessie Rhodes, third grade and first grade. I'm just here to share a little bit about my personal experience. We've tried for 4 years to get into this school and consistently applied and applied and applied and applied. And we were finally accepted, both of our children, this year, so we were super excited. Only to find out, obviously, that the school is going to be changing. We applied because it's a global school. I think all children could actually benefit from being educated with 21st century perspectives and in a global, with a global curriculum. The small class sizes, which I just learned at the Bessie Rhodes parent meeting recently, that there is no longer a cap for Bessie Rhodes classrooms. I think it was 22. I just learned that no longer exists. But that was one of the other reasons we came. We came for diversity, as so many other people mentioned. I think that it's a blessing to go to school. I was raised in Rogers Park, so I grew up with friends that were Black, white, Indian, Hispanic, Asian, everybody. We had sleepovers. I mean, it's a blessing to, as others have mentioned, have your child go to a diverse school. Mandarin, that was another big thing for us. There's hardly any other school that I know that, that learns Mandarin, at least nowhere nearby that I'm aware of anyway. In addition to that, learning a foreign language at an early age, I think in the district you don't learn until you're in middle school at all the other schools. My third grader is going on a field trip tomorrow for which I'm chaperoning, and as much as he wants to go, he's sad that he's going to miss Mandarin because tomorrow is Mandarin Day. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that the teachers are going to leave the school. I haven't heard of any incentives to keep the teachers from a mass exodus. I keep hearing that, well, your kids are grandfathered in, it's not really going to affect you. I feel like the effects are being minimized for the families of children who currently go there. I don't understand why teachers would stay. If you're being told that you're going to be phased out in 2 years, 3 years, whatever, why wouldn't you try to go ahead and leave and find another opportunity? If you're going to have to do it anyway, why not bite the bullet, get it over with, get your feet planted somewhere else? I feel that diversity in teachers is very important. I think Rhodes is just now having a greater diversity of Black teachers. Historically, it's my understanding that we really haven't had more than 1 or 2. Now we have a handful, which is exciting. But now seeing that that's going to change, I'm concerned. One quick point. A lot of research shows that children learn well, or if not better, from teachers that look like them, that can relate to them culturally. As someone else mentioned, there's a very small population of teachers in Evanston that are African American as it is, and an even smaller percentage of African Americans that are certified in, whatever the certifications are. So I'm concerned that my children are going to go 5, 6, 7 more years and potentially not have a teacher that can relate to them on a cultural level. I'm concerned on many fronts. So I hope you'll reconsider. Thanks.
Thank you. Treva O'Banion.
Good evening. My name is Treva O'Banion. I live at 1037 Hull Terrace in Evanston. I moved to Evanston in 2009, preparing to adopt a child that I knew would be biracial. We have him. He's a first grader at Bessie Rhodes. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to tell him about the changes in his school when he asks me questions like, where did my teacher go? Why isn't she here anymore? Who's going to be my teacher yet next year? And I say, I don't know. All these kids are speaking Spanish. Do I get to learn Spanish with them? No, because you're going to be in 2nd grade next year. And that program is for the new kids coming in. I'm concerned about the kids that are already there. I'm concerned about the community I came with. I rode with Kamika tonight. I see my friend Hong sitting in the back. My child wants to be able to go to China. He's excited about his global studies program. I'm not sure what's going to happen when it starts getting phased out year by year, because the school is really becoming a Spanish language, English language immersion program. As some of the other parents have pointed out, a 50% school of Spanish is not global. I spend my day on the phone with people from the United Kingdom, from India, from China, from Canada. My job is global. I unfortunately grew up in Iowa with a wonderful education filled with white kids. I want my child to have more than that. I want him to have the global studies program and be in the community that is Bessie Rhodes. It is a community school. It is a local school. It means a lot to us. It is for our kids. Thank you.
And our final speaker will be Gubin Lebsawork. I'm sorry, did you sign up? I'm sorry, well, no, there's no. What's your name? I'm not seeing your name on here. And anyway, can Gubin approach and then?
My name is Guban. I live in 8825 Mansolo. I have two children, fourth grader and second grader. Originally, I'm from Ethiopia. They speak Amharic, my national language. They speak English, and they are learning Mandarin. They love to learn Mandarin. Plus, Bessie Road, what I like about Bessie Road is the global studies. They learn about all society around the world. And the diversity we have in the school is like one family. Now, things are changing. Especially, we are concerned about the teachers. How about the teachers who have spent their life to bring the little kids' mind to a greater status? And now, when their life is disrupted, the kids' life is also disrupted. How is the kids' mentality to handle this kind of change? For me, it looks like those children are being like a guinea pig for a program which is not well studied, well founded, which can be the best for the school or for the district or for the kids. We don't know for which is benefiting. But I know for sure it's not benefiting our children. Let's work for our children. So I hope the district will consider on this issue. Thank you.
And then Monique, you'll be our final speaker.
I must tell you guys that I'm absolutely overwhelmed this evening hearing everything that is going on with the District 65 schools, and I must say that I'm not impressed. Mr. Gorn, you might remember me because I've sent countless emails about high fructose corn syrup in the schools and what's being done about that. So I appreciate that someone is addressing my issue. But today I'm really here to represent the fact that I'm in support of the Bessie Rhodes, how it is now, and that it should stay the way that it is. Most importantly, because everyone that I have spoken with doesn't really know anything about it. So I work a full-time job. I'm a family person. I have 2 small children. I don't read the newspaper. I'm not looking online to see what's going on in the community. I find out from people like us, from parents, from families, and a lot of other people are like me as well. So I don't believe that everyone has had the opportunity to even find out what's going on. And I think with that, under that guise, I believe that a lot of things are trying to have, or lots of changes are trying to be made as a result of the fact, or capitalizing on the fact that a lot of people really don't understand what's going on right now in the community. How could a TWE program, and my daughter is at Willard and she's in a TWE program, I'm bilingual and I'm very passionate about Spanish, but I can definitely tell you with the exclusivity that you are trying to provide to Bessie Rhodes with the TWE program is not the way to go. How could you all think about all of these people in the community that are not being addressed, and all of a sudden, how is Spanish the #1 language? It's not what makes us rich. It's so many other languages that make us rich, and taking away Bessie would completely demolish what the city stands for. I live at 3440 Thayer Street. I am the only African American. My daughter doesn't know anybody of her nationality. There is no one in her classroom that looks like her. That is it. And look, you're thinking that TWE is going to fix all of that? Absolutely not. There should be another option for African Americans. Where is our voice? And you know why it's not here? It's not here because a lot of African Americans are working. They don't have childcare. They may not be working. They have a lot of more social issues and factors to consider. And I believe that the board would capitalize on something like that and take advantage of the fact that they can make decisions under the guise of making it a better place and making it more exclusive for people when it's really not. This is absolutely unacceptable, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you to everyone who has spoken. We will continue on. I'm sorry, we've exceeded our time for public comment, and we've gone through everyone who signed up, so I apologize. We will move on. Rebecca, I think you have the next motion.
I move that the Board of Education accept recommendations outlined in the attached group motion and approve the following: appointments, leaves, separations, track movement recommendations, September and October 2017 board and committee meeting minutes, destruction of October 2015 closed session audio recordings, review and release the 2013 closed session meeting minutes, August 2017 list of bills, treasurer's report, and the budget amendment, elevator maintenance contract, and gift acceptance for Kingsley.
Second. Hernandez?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Tanya Vudi?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Partha?
Yes, motion carries 5-0.
I move that the board approve the fiscal year 2016-17 audit as presented.
Second.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Oh, do you want to?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, I don't think we have any discussion. Do we have?
It remains as presented from the auditors, and it's a clean audit, and we know that you've reviewed the package in front of you.
All right, thank you. So go ahead and take the vote.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Tanya Vudi?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Partha?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. Anya.
I move that the Board of Education adopt the Truth in Taxation Resolution to estimate the taxes to be levied for tax year 2017 and publish a legal notice of the hearing.
Is there a second?
A second.
And again, we discussed this at our last.
Discuss this and presented it, and we will file this with the Cook County and assessor, and then if there are adjustments, those will be made.
So can we take the vote?
Hernandez?
Yes.
Mendoza?
Yes.
Tanya Vudi?
Yes.
Cohen? Yes. Partha?
Yes, motion carries 5-0. And that will move on to our discussion topics, the first of which will be the TWE program expansion discussion. Dr. Beardsley?
And as Stacy is setting up, just want to reiterate thank all the people who came this evening for comments and concerns, and reiterate that this discussion has been before the board for over 4 years, and the driving force here is that the TWE program, which is where we provide our bilingual services for our Spanish-dominant children, is offered through the TWE program. The TWE has worked with fidelity when there are 50% Spanish-dominant kids and 50% English-dominant kids in the classroom. We're at a point across the district where the Spanish population has grown, where our classes are at 65-35, if not higher in terms of the percentages. And so in order to move forward to find fidelity in this offering, we are proposing, and as we have, the expansion of TWE by adding 2 strands in the district. And as the commentators this evening discussed, and as we've recommended, we are recommending that at Bessie Rhodes, and we keep that recommendation before you tonight. We do want to stress that in recognizing and respecting the concerns that many people have about the timeliness of this. Again, this is a conversation that's been going on for 4+ years. And indeed, if we move forward and we don't move forward with two strands, we're really not offering TWE. And I think we have to come to terms with that and come to terms with the best in practice, best in field is the TWE offering that we're suggesting we're suggesting and recommending and standing strong behind that we want to continue. If it's a program that's at 65-35, if it's at 70-30 in terms of the percentage of kids, that's really not TWE. And I think the decision calculus that we all have as we recommend and as you consider as a governing board is how do we continue what is best in practice and best in field. And so that's the recommendation before you. We've made some adjustments based on commentary and issues that have been raised in the community, and Stacy will go through those as well as giving a brief overview of the program. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Stacy Beardsley.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to follow up again with you in regards to our proposal to expand the two-way immersion program to the Bessie Rhodes site. Tonight, I'll provide, again, a short overview of our proposal. I will respond to some of the additional questions that were raised in the previous meeting, and then share the revised recommendation for Bessie Rhodes for two-way immersion expansion. And then we'll open up for a little bit of discussion. As we've discussed, the two-way immersion program, which we refer to as TWE in District 65, is a research-proven and popular dual-language model that's implemented in countries around the world. In District 65, we offer TWE for English and Spanish-dominant students. One of the key elements that contributes to the success of the model is the 50-50 split between English and Spanish-dominant students, which is an important factor for driving the desire to expand our two-way immersion program in District 65. The goals of the two-way immersion program are high academic levels of achievement for all students, high levels of bilingualism and biliteracy in both English and Spanish, and increased cultural competence. One of the greatest strengths of the two-way immersion model is the fact that it's an educational model that is built upon the strengths that every student brings to the classroom. It relies on the fact that half the class is coming with knowledge of a dominant English language and a dominant second language, be it Spanish. And it has teachers, as we heard from a parent actually at our session last week, it draws kids into relying on each other's strengths to support their understanding and navigation of our curriculum. An important caveat to think about here is that the two-way immersion program talks about the language of instruction, but it doesn't shift what it is that we're learning about. And one of the things we'll talk a little bit later tonight is that a global studies model is about a type of learning that occurs in the classrooms that exposes students to a variety of cultures and understandings from around the world. And it asks kids to investigate, to ask questions, to learn cultures, to take action. This exact learning can take place in a two-way immersion classroom while students are acquiring language skills in English and in Spanish. The rationale for TWE expansion is really fourfold. First and foremost, we have increasing student need. As Dr. Gorin referenced a little bit earlier, currently in our 6 strands of two-way immersion in District 65, we are no longer at the 50-50 model, which we see as being essential for student success, and research supports that that is the best way to offer this model. And when we are short of that model, we are not delivering on the full value that our students deserve. So there's increased student need. We need additional seats to return our classes to 50-50 and provide the best possible educational model for our Spanish-dominant speakers and our English-dominant speakers. Second, there's increasing community demand. We see far more applications for these two-way immersion seats for our native English speakers than we can fill. And so there's a voice that says that there's additional demand for this program on the English side and need on the Spanish-dominant side. There's national research and there's local research that says the two-way immersion program is working for our students. And one of the things that I really think about is it is working for our students. And if we fully maximize the model, we can see even further gains for our students. And when we did the Hispanic Student Achievement Report last year, we can see that we're accelerating growth to some degree, but we are not at the point of closing an achievement gap. And so when we talk about educational equity, it's about diminishing that gap while all students benefit. And our two-way immersion program is a program that does that for our students in District 65. The final rationale for expansion is our commitment to equity. In the District 65 Racial and Educational Equity Statement that we put out last year, we specifically call out a couple tenets that are very, very important to consider when we're thinking about two-way immersion program. One, District 65 commits to honoring and building upon the strengths and assets of every student. The two-way immersion program views students that are second language learners with strengths and assets. It's designed to allow kids to support each other. It's designed to celebrate diversity and to build that within our students in our classrooms. We are also committed to providing all students with the resources, opportunities, and supports needed to ensure preparation for success in high school and beyond. This, for our second language learners who qualify for supports, is an important step for creating access to education in District 65 and a pathway to excellence. We're also committed to implementing culturally relevant teaching practices that reflect the contributions and the perspectives of all people. So when we think about a two-way immersion program, yes, we're holding 50% of the seats for our native Spanish speakers, who do hail from 14 different countries. With that in mind, when we think about what I lost my train of thought. I apologize for that. But when we think about our students, we need to accelerate and create opportunities that are going to create pathways for their success. So when we took, essentially, we've defined a rationale, we've laid out site criteria, and I'll talk a little bit later about some of the evaluation that went into the different site selections and evaluation. But after understanding the need, we gathered input from the community on selection criteria and evaluated all K-5 schools and all magnet schools for possible expansion of the TWE program. One factor that received significant weight was the effort to break down isolation with our two-way immersion programs. This need was highlighted in the District 65 Equity Report that was published last spring by our equity consultant, Corey Wallace. As a result of this finding, the ability to add strands and not create an isolated strand gained increasing importance when we moved through our evaluation this summer and fall. Each TWE school was evaluated as a potential site for expansion, and each site presented specific challenges for expansion, of which, again, I will discuss a little bit later. Through this evaluation, Bessie Rhodes was found to be the best site for expanding our two-way immersion program for the reasons that are above. One, I understand that in our community comments tonight, we continue to struggle with seeing that the two-way immersion program can be done in complement with the Global Studies program. There is not a desire to take away Bessie Rhodes. There is not a desire to take away a Global Studies model. There is a desire to maintain and strengthen a Global Studies model where students have an opportunity to study two languages from the first day of kindergarten to the end of 8th grade and to exit bilingual and bicultural. We see an alignment, and I'll walk through this on a future slide, between the Global Studies model and the opportunity of a two-way immersion program. We also see an opportunity to create a wall-to-wall dual language school, which when we look at research, we look at other schools and other districts, this is an incredible opportunity to create a school that welcomes and values students from two different languages and supports that from the beginning to the end of the day, from the beginning to the end of time when their studies at Bessie Rhodes. It's also an opportunity to make sure that specialists are in place for dual language students, that when we think about special education, speech and language, that the necessary supports are there. Because one of the questions that came up previously was, how well will this model support some of our diverse learners? And in looking at the research, there's strong research that says that our diverse learners can do as well in a dual language program as they do within our monolingual classrooms. We also see that Bessie Rhodes has an attendance preference area in the 5th ward, which could potentially create increased access for Black or Hispanic students that do not qualify for EL supports into our Bessie Rhodes English seats. I need to postpone this. All right. We also, and additionally, Bessie Rhodes has, could address a growing population of native Spanish speakers that are currently in the Lincolnwood attendance boundary, but are also within the 5th ward area. We see that we could open both strands simultaneously, moving to a place where we could address the need of native Spanish speakers in our kindergarten classrooms next year, getting ourselves to a 50-50 split. one of the things that Dr. Gorin mentioned earlier is that this conversation has been going on for 4 years. And each year that we move forward without addressing this challenge is another year that our students begin studying two-way immersion classrooms in less than optimal conditions for supporting their learning and language needs. And we also see an opportunity to more fully maximize the enrollment at Bessie Rhodes, where currently we have an average of 19 students to a class. We made a couple adjustments to the recommendations that we brought forward at our last meeting. Specifically, there are 2 recommendations that have been adjusted after meeting and discussing some of the questions and concerns from the community. The first change is that we've taken a look at the recommendation to withdraw Mandarin from the School of Bessie Rhodes, and we have changed that, and we will maintain Mandarin and Spanish in their current state at Bessie Rhodes as is designed. Should the recommendation be moved forward, I think we need to look at whether we would begin language study in Spanish in 1st grade, which does not happen right now. But beyond that, the recommendation would be to maintain the language model as is, which has students studying Mandarin and Spanish starting in 2nd grade through 6th grade, and then choosing to specialize in 7th and 8th grade. So it would maintain that language study for all students that are currently enrolled in Bessie Rhodes, and for students that join the two-way immersion program, it would provide an opportunity for them to begin to understand the language and the culture from China as part of their study. That would fill the place of our 5th period class as it does today. And so there are no additional changes to staffing that would be required with that change. Additionally, we also allocated some funds to deepen the curricular model and the connection between global studies and TWE. And this is money that's made available to Bessie Rhodes on an annual basis that could be directed to addressing the overall strength of the global studies model, K-8, and or looking at diving into particular curriculum modules or units that the school decides to strengthen in order to strengthen its connection to Bessie Rhodes. And this is a way to, again, help to strengthen and benefit the whole school with the decision to potentially add TWE to Bessie Rhodes. The only thing that's changed in financial impact is the addition of the $5,000 for curricular enhancements annually. Beyond that, the finances remain the same for this proposal. Moving into some of the questions that were asked previously, I want to address a few different topics. First was a question about how well does this model address students that have unique learning needs. Within the packet tonight, we have several different quotes and references to research that supports strongly the fact that students, that diverse learners can benefit and do succeed in a dual language program. And this quote specifically states that special needs students do as well in two-way Spanish immersion as their counterparts in regular English-only educational environments. And the dual language model really allows us to say, how do we staff specialists within that building that can support the learning of all students so that students can be successful within that two-way immersion program. Another question that has been brought up was, what is really the connection between a two-way immersion program and a global studies program? This diagram is actually from Asia Society, which Bessie Rhodes has used quite a bit as a foundation for their global studies model. What is here is a bit of what I talked about a couple minutes ago. There's some key elements to global studies. 1, investigate the world. 2, recognize patterns. 3, communicate ideas. And 4, take action. These ideas are really invested in the type of learning opportunities that we present to our children. So these things are things that we can look at and work to strengthen within existing curriculum to create the types of experiences that are mirrored in a global studies model that develops students' global competencies. And communicate ideas. Specifically, this particular area of the model addresses a couple very important things. 1, it calls for students to be proficient in 2 or more languages. So this is an area of the model that we are not achieving currently at Bessie Rhodes, that we have an opportunity to achieve with the addition of a two-way immersion program. And 2, it talks about the fact that students need to understand the cultures of others in their communication. The opportunity, and I understand that there's a richness of diversity in Bessie Rhodes, the opportunity to continue to have class with students from different cultures and to understand different cultures as part of a model and within an educational environment with a global studies model will allow our students to understand what is special and unique about their cultures and what is special and unique about the cultures of the students that they will be sharing this experience with over 9 years. So I think there is great opportunity to use some of the curricular enhancement money to think about how to strengthen the global studies model and how to make sure our students, our Black students, our Asian students, are central to the learning and the investigations that are being done at Bessie Rhodes, because we intentionally want to attract and maintain a diverse and unique set of students at Bessie Rhodes to benefit from the global studies and two-way immersion programming. The additional topics that were raised previously were, one, how do we manage educator and staff support and transition? We have been working to answer questions and concerns with our educators and responded to a series of educators when we're working with that staff to continue to keep a dialogue going with questions. When it comes to staffing, the transition that we are proposing would be gradual. Next year we see that there are a certain number of educators, but a small number, that we would need to replace at Bessie Rhodes. We will work with we will work to make every reasonable effort to help those educators find positions in a similar grade level or an adjacent grade level. We are also offering some support for professional learning. We have a bilingual class that we're offering as part of our Choice Professional Learning now, and we're looking at potential other ways to support the acquisition of additional needs to in either ESL or Spanish language. The reality is, if somebody does not already speak Spanish, however, it would be very difficult to become qualified for one of these positions. But we are looking at ways to support ESL endorsement, and if there are individuals, which there are a few, who do speak Spanish, considering ways, and we'd need to work with DEC to work out any potential benefits of this to support them in their learning trajectory. In regards to potential enrollment implications, I worked with our research accountability and data team, and we did an analysis of Bessie Rhodes and essentially analyzed that if certain percentages of families did leave the school, what would be the impact on enrollment at other schools. What research accountability and data has come back is they said that we can, using our traditional measures, manage any level of exit from Bessie Rhodes. The schools that are most impacted are Walker and Chute. But the team is very confident that in using the systems that they use today, that they could address particular situations and particular grades where if there was a high degree of exit from Bessie Rhodes, there would be a significant increase in class sizes and be able to maintain those class sizes within our class size guidelines. With that, though, I want to say the same thing that I said to the Bessie Rhodes parents this past week. My first preference would be to work with the Bessie Rhodes parents and the Bessie Rhodes community and the Bessie Rhodes educators to help reassure the fact that we can maintain a strong global studies model and a strong school for the students who are not and the students who are going to be in the two-way immersion program. I believe that this is very doable, and I would like to work with families to help work through this impact of change should this proposal be moved forward so that we can keep the Bessie Rhodes families committed to Bessie Rhodes. The curricular enhancements I spoke about a little bit earlier. This is really focused on opportunity to strengthen the global studies model and to focus studies around the student population within Bessie Rhodes, including Black students, including other populations within that there so that students can see themselves in the area of study. Foreign language offerings, I also addressed, and the shift on that is that we will maintain the existing Bessie Rhodes language model, which allows students to study both Spanish and Mandarin, and then make a selection later in their educational career as to which one they want to specialize. Clearly, as TWE grows up, students will already have a high degree of proficiency and will be learning content, so Mandarin would become that foreign language strand for them, and Spanish would be offered throughout the day, so you would not need to offer it as a special class. In regards to site selection, I wanted to talk a little bit more in detail to that. As I mentioned earlier, making sure and working to not expand or limit the degree of isolation for our two-way immersion classrooms is an important factor. As a result, one of the things that we did first was we took a deep look at all of the schools that currently have TWE strands to see whether they would be good candidates for potential expansion to TWE. And as I said earlier, we used criteria, we looked at every school. But in walking through the schools that did have TWE strands, they really fell into two groups. The first group was Oakton, Dawes, and Washington. For these schools, if we added one strand of two-way immersion programming to those schools, we would move to a place where they only had one single strand of non-TWE or English-only classes, depending on how we want to refer to it, but only one strand. So that would take us from an isolated TWE strand at Oakton and Dawes and move us to an isolated English-only or non-TWE strand. So that did not relieve the issue of isolation. Then when we considered the idea, and at Washington we're already at 2 strands, so you would go to 3 and you'd have 1 English strand only, creating isolation there. So these schools, if you added 1, you create an isolated single strand of English-only instruction. If you add 2, you potentially you would be looking at removing these schools from being neighborhood schools and reclassifying them essentially as magnet schools, because they would only have magnet programs. And what that would do is, that would mean that all of the families that live in that neighborhood attendance boundary would no longer have an attendance area school if they opted for non-TWE programming. And it means that those attendance boundaries would need to get carved up and assigned to other elementary schools. So those two things became very critical in the decision. And when we think about Oakton, Dawes, and Washington, that shift would also have a disproportionate impact on our Title I schools and our students that are serving a greater number of students of color and low-income students. The second group of our schools that currently have two-way immersion programming were Dewey and Willard. And with Dewey and Willard, the average class size of both of those schools exceed the average classroom size in the district. And so they're in the upper half of the district as far as their overall average classroom sizes. So when we consider adding a single strand, we wouldn't create isolation, but we move into a place where our class sizes are moving up above our district class size guidelines, and we would be moving to a point of needing to consider limiting enrollment to a neighborhood school for families that live in a neighborhood attendance boundary, because we would be exceeding classroom sizes by fairly significant amounts in the analysis. And so for those two reasons, at this time, those schools do not qualify, in our opinion, to be the best sites for recommended TWE expansion because of those implications. It was Dawes that got moved forward as a finalist with Bessie Rhodes. It is important to realize with Dawes, there were also a couple other things that worked out that entered into the decision. We added an English as a second language program at Dawes. This is its second year in operation, so there's an ESL program that's now been there for 2 years. That particular neighborhood attendance boundary has a significantly growing population of English as a second language speakers that are not Spanish speakers. And so what we have seen is that program in its second year has jumped to serving 42 students, 29 of which live in that attendance boundary, of whom represent 17 different, I believe it is 17 different native languages. And so the potential of going to Dawes, 1, we'd be removing a neighborhood school and flipping it to a magnet. 2, we'd have to reassign attendance boundaries to most likely to Walker and Oakton, creating an impact again disproportionately on Title I schools. And we would need to move an ESL program that is serving a number of ESL speakers that live within the Dawes attendance boundary. So all of those were seen as criteria that were less than optimal for expansion at Dawes. And as we have said earlier, this is a difficult decision no matter which school it goes into. In running the community engagement sessions, the groups essentially, we'd get through halfway through the session on why we need to expand it, and everybody would say, this is great, this is easy, why are we even here tonight? And then we'd move into the fact that it needs to be expanded somewhere. And we need to meet the needs of our native Spanish-speaking students, and we need to start doing it in the way that research says is best for our students. And so no matter where we go, as much as I feel for the Bessie Rhodes community and any other community, this is a group of students whose needs we are not fully serving. And it is time for us to start serving the needs in the types of environment that research supports. And so I ask you to consider our recommendation and the need to expand this program.
Thank you very much. I think we can move into questions, comments from the board. Anybody want to start?
I wanted to thank you, Stacy, for all your hard work. As you stated, this is not an easy decision. And I do want to remind everyone that's still here that this has been in the works for 4 years. And it's not at a surprise to anybody in this district that we've had to do this. I appreciate everyone's sentiment around the 5th Ward, but I can't go without feeling frustration that this community voted no for a 5th Ward school 5 years ago. So I say to the people who might be listening at home, had we voted for a 5th Ward school, we would not be in this situation. And I also remind that this is a decision for our district. It's so difficult. And I hear every single comment that has been made, and I hope that the additional information that Stacy has provided gives you a little glimpse into how difficult this decision is. But it's a decision that we're making for our district, for all of our students. And again, I think that when we think about the community that we represent people that don't have kids in this school district. We represent property owners that I would think would come to Evanston because we have a dual language school. And finally, as I stated in our last board meeting, this is a community decision. So when we think about keeping a global studies school, we can't do it without your help. So we keep it global if you stay. If you stay and you help us make this a global studies school. How do we encourage our teachers to stay? We need your help. We need parent involvement. And again, I think that this decision is incredibly eye-opening, hopefully, for some parents, and how parent involvement and community involvement is needed at every decision that we make. As a newer board member, I'm learning a lot through this process, and I'm understanding now how much more education we need as a community to understand the decisions that are made at the district level, and that they don't need to happen when someone's backyard is at stake. These are decisions that are made years in advance, we have an incredible team of people who are committed to our district that I can tell you have spent countless hours, we've spent countless hours thinking about and listening to community feedback. And I would say that we are still very much committed to hopefully one day bringing a school back to the 5th Ward. I know I'm committed to it because our 5th Ward deserves a school. But I don't think that I don't think that it's an appropriate time to be talking about that because we had that decision 5 years ago and Evanston voted no. So as you're having these conversations in the community, think about that. Think about how we can now work with our administration, with the current board, to really make that a reality. And I think that Paul has already stressed and addressed that we are having those conversations. So I encourage you to remain involved and to please see this as a district decision. And again, Stacy, I thank you for all the additional information, and just thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you and Amy and the research department with Peter, and again, answering our board and community questions. And again, I want to reiterate thank you to all of the board members who actually have been part of the conversations that have attended some of the Bessie Rhodes meetings with parents, as well as our administration and staff. We as a board, again, you have a very diverse board, one of the most diverse boards that this community's ever had, and we really are committed to listening to you and hearing your concerns. Again, I empathize and I hear you and I listen to you in regards to some of the loss that could potentially happen if we decide on going with Bessie Rhodes. And as a parent, I can empathize. I can empathize. Again, my kids are a Dawes and a Chute. And if that decision were made where I had made a specific choice to be within that school, and then all of a sudden there was a change that was going to be made, and I felt that I was uninformed, I would be doing the same thing that you're doing. And I always encourage our community to engage us, because like my colleague Rebecca said, we can't do this work alone. And it's very, very difficult. It's very hard. At the same token, it was very, very difficult to hear some of the testimony that some of our community members gave in regards to how bringing a TWE program would diminish the diversity in a school. I would love for you to come to Dawes. I work with the PTA, my wife and I, to create something called We Are Dawes, a nice event in March, where we honor our ability as well as multicultural groups of families, and to show you that we have just as much diversity as Bessie Rhodes. I was the DJ at the last event, and I was made sure that I played Jamaican music, Haitian music. Again, we have a large refugee population, as Stacy kind of alluded to with some of the ESL services we're providing. We have this innate diversity that is present in pretty much all our schools. And particularly, in South Evanston, I think it's incredible, and to be here, I feel so grateful. But at the same time, again, hearing about how, Mexico is a very, very diverse country, and a lot of times when we talk about Latinos, we talk about Latinos as a homogenous group. Right? Well, they all speak Spanish, right? And they're all mestizo. But you would be surprised if you go to parts of Mexico where you see, in northern Mexico, that there's blonde and blue-eyed and 6'5" folks who you would not believe are Mexican because they don't fit the stereotype. You have Afro-Mexicans in Veracruz. You have, again, indigenous. We are just as diverse as the United States, and even more so. We have Arabic populations, we have French, Germanic populations, again, who influence our culture. So and that is something this board is committed to in regards to what, we're eventually going to have a curriculum conversation. And that is what I want all of our children to learn. That again, all the world's cultures, and all the world's countries, albeit they might speak one language, have so much diversity that is innate in them, and the beauty of Bessie Rhodes is that it already has this framework to work off of. But I think as a community, it would behoove us as adults to really look at, appreciating those types of perspectives, because some of the things I heard today were a little hurtful in regards to how my community is regarded, how my language is regarded. Again, it's something I think that as a community we are working through, or we're going to work on. Again, I think all culture is valuable, and whatever we can do as a district, and as an administration, and as a community to ensure that our children learn how the beauty of the diversity that we have within our community, it's all the better. And we need you. We need you as parents to join us in these conversations. And again, we're doing a lot of great equity work, and we're inviting parents to be part of that. I mean, I've been through Beyond Diversity training as well as the SEED trainings, which are transformative and can really give us all a lens in regards to looking at how to appreciate the diversity that is within. And a talent that is innate in children and the families that inhabit our community. Again, this is a very, very, very difficult decision, and again, I do empathize with families. But again, we, by federal law and by state law, we are mandated to serve, bilingual students. And, again, this is the best model. And again, it's a model for families who, again, right now, again, we see very few Latino families here present because, again, just like one of the parents mentioned, black parents aren't here because they're out there working and they're making our city run. Same with Latino families. We work in the restaurants. We're cleaning, the streets. We're beautifying our lawns. We work at Northwestern. We're professors. So we have economic diversity as well as language diversity as well as cultural diversity. So to think that parents feel that the presence of my community would diminish the diversity within the school, I think is incorrect. And I would behoove you to rethink how we talk about it, because our children are watching. And we are going to have to be the examples to them in regards to how we are going to move forward as a community in appreciating all of the cultures that inhabit us, and not just when it's convenient for us, not just when it's we tend to be a community that, again, we have this diversity, but that we only appreciate it when it's from afar. Right, but when we're faced with it face to face, then we have to deal with it, and it infringes upon some of our personal goals. Then it's a problem. But it's a problem that we need to discuss as a community and have these very, very serious and honest conversations. Again, I thank you. I thank you for again, trying to do your best to meet the needs and answer the questions of our Bessie Rhodes parents. I thank you, Bessie Rhodes parents, for sticking around to listen to us and to be here and to advocate for your families. Again, I would be doing the same if I was in your shoes. I thank my fellow board members who've been out there. And again, we are committed to this equity work, and that means, one, being at the places where we're going to have these controversial and very difficult decisions, but also trying to elevate. We should be very, very intentional about trying to elevate and reach out to families who cannot be here. And I ask, and this is, I think, the second or third time I've asked that we start transcribing, these meetings, because again, they're on our YouTube channel. If we can transcribe them in Spanish, so then I can send them out, or we can send them out to families who can't be there and say, look, you weren't able to be here, but here's a recording of this meeting, and it's in Spanish, or it's in Arabic, or it's in Chinese. It would be accessible to them. I think that's something that we really, really, if we really want to engage community in a substantive way, so that we know that all voices and all stakeholders are engaged, and particularly the folks who can't be here to express their concerns. And that's all.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you.
I just have a couple really quick comments. First off, to the Bessie Rhodes parents and community, I'm hearing you. I understand and appreciate your concerns. I also appreciate your bringing up the Fifth Ward School, because I think it's really helpful for us as a board to hear about that and to have a reason to discuss that in an open forum. So I appreciate the inventiveness that went into and the thoughtfulness that went into the other proposal. I think I would also like to, though, echo Rebecca and Sergio's statements around this being both a district-wide decision and in the spirit of inclusiveness of all of the members of the community. So just wanting to make sure that we were very mindful about that. Stacey, the work that you've put into this is really just absolutely tremendous. I was part of the conversations a year ago around TWE expansion, and I will say that the work that you put into this has superseded to a different degree what's been done in the past. And I just want to let you know that I noticed that, and I hope that the entire community notices that, and really appreciate the mindfulness that went into this. And Dr. Gorin, to you and the rest of the team as well. I know this is complicated. I think that's probably all that I wanted to say. Thank you.
I want to add just two quick things. So this is a public service announcement. TWE is not just for white kids, okay? So I encourage Asian families to apply for TWE. I encourage multiracial families to apply for TWEs. I think that we have this conversation that TWE is Latino, Spanish-speaking, and white, and it's not. I encourage you to visit the schools that have TWE and to really see the diversity and talk to some of the families that had TWE introduced into their community and how difficult that was and how much pushback those schools gave. But would they have made that decision now, 4 or 5 years later? As a parent, I also think of this as an exercise of resiliency. And I think as parents, one of the things that we try to do more now is prepare the path for our kids versus preparing our kids for the path. And I think that's something that we live in a community where we can do that. We can prepare the path for our kids and make sure that they have the things that they need. But in making difficult decisions and in helping our kids understand the questions that were brought up by some of the parents as far as the changes, that teaches our kids to be resilient. It teaches them to go through changes and to adapt to things that we as parents can't always prepare for. And just as it's an activity in resilience for our school district, it's an activity in resilience for our kids. And so I really ask you to be part of keeping Bessie Rhodes the global study school that it is and that it can continue to be. Because I really believe that it's up to, you go to any school in the district and you know the community by the parents, you know the community by the number by the involvement of the individuals at that school. And again, we can't do this without you. So I just ask you to just please, look over what went into making this decision, and I think as much as you can, help your kids go through a possible transition. Not just through this. There's going to be many different situations that we have to put our kids through. That is an exercise in resiliency.
Thank you.
So, this is an incredibly difficult conversation, and I think the positive is the amount of thoughtfulness and responsiveness that has gone into the proposal. As this board, we started having this conversation in June, and there's been a significant amount of I feel like hearing of the conversation from us as a board and the community. And among all of the responsibilities that you have, also putting the due diligence into this, Stacy, has, I think, enriched the proposal significantly and made it responsible to many different stakeholders in a way that continues to elevate, I think, the quality of what's being proposed. And I look forward to that process continuing if the proposal moved ahead. I feel like this, and I appreciate hearing from the Bessie Rhodes community, and I appreciate the connection that this discussion has perhaps possibly strengthened between parents and children and families in terms of solidifying a commitment to one another, but also perhaps a knowing of one another in the work that you all have done to speak to us and enrich what Stacy has been able to propose, but also broaden our thinking as a board. As I listen to the conversation, I feel torn. I feel still like last time. I feel excited and I feel pained. And I imagine that exists in a lot of places in our community. And so what is elevated for me is the need for restorative work that is connected to our equity work. The equity work in our community we can talk about it, and we need to talk about it at the board level in a very technical way. You know, we have our equity statement, we have our equity policy, and we have the equity elements of the reports that we receive and that we request, and that there's been a great deal of responsiveness to. But the reality is there's a lot of trauma in our community around racial politics. And so I feel like this conversation about the Fifth Ward needing a school is important, and we need to ensure that as a board we're doing, and as a district, that we're doing more than just providing lip service to the importance of that conversation. The importance of having had this conversation about TWE expansion suppressed for 4 to 5 years is also, I think, is one that's painful, right? For 4 to 5 years to know that there's an expansion that's necessary, and to have that suppressed, and to have multiple different communities suggest that TWE's not wanted at their school, or TWE is only wanted at their school so that their children can learn to speak Spanish, but not actually in service of the broader scope, meaning all children who are participating in the program, including our Spanish-speaking children. I think that it's been, these conversations trigger a very protective instinct in individuals, and I think in our community. And sometimes we are not at our best when we are triggered out of fear, and anger, or frustration, or confusion, or just feeling like our autonomy has been taken from us in decisions. So I feel like there's a lot of equity work that we clearly need to continue to do as a district, as well as restorative work in our communities. I will say that I feel like it's important to elevate a couple of things that I think are underlying the amount of frustration and sadness and anger that we don't have a Fifth Ward school, and that we're suggesting that Bessie Rhodes would have a busing pattern that would draw from the Fifth Ward, as opposed, while we have this, while we still don't have a Fifth Ward school. One of the things that I think is or that we should be honest with ourselves about, is that the Fifth Ward school was voted down by a couple of wards. It wasn't voted down by the entire city. So there were people in our city who did want a Fifth Ward school and wanted it badly, and were devastated at the loss of that opportunity, and worked really hard to advocate for it. And there were some folks who also did not. And those were a couple of wards. It wasn't our entire city. So I think for some people it felt like a really close vote, and it feels like something that was right at the fingertips but was lost. Two, we have not had a staffing model in our district to support thinking about how Black children learn, or how it may be helpful to Black children to be educated in neighborhoods that are proximate to where they live, and what learning loss and social emotional learning experiences are impacted by having to be bused to a school that's outside of your neighborhood. What are the implications of that? We've not had a staffing model to support that. It's not legally mandated to have that, but we have had a staffing model that has supported expanding our thinking about TWE, and we should. I wouldn't suggest that we should have anything different. I am so appreciative that we have Amy, that we have a staffing model that allows us to fully understand and appreciate bilingual learning. But we don't have that for Black children. And so I think that a lot of these conversations about the Fifth Ward, what's underlying that is neglect. We can't have this conversation about how valuable bicultural learning for, or multicultural learning for Black children is, because we don't have someone in-house doing the research and able to work closely with Amy, able to work closely with Stacy, and elevate that conversation at an institutional level. And so I think there is a lot of frustration because folks know that it's important. It's not their job to articulate it to us, and we need to, as an institution, get better at figuring out how to articulate it for ourselves. And that can't happen. We have a model that shows how that happens, but we haven't replicated that for Black student learning. So that is, I think, a part of the pain and the frustration, and the reason why this conversation is percolating up side by side with with our TWE conversation. Additionally, you know, 5 years ago when Fifth Ward School was being voted on, we had a different board. We did not have an equity report, and we did not have, we didn't have the foster school and family focus now building that was potentially going to be lost to the community. And there's a lot of trauma in feeling like institutions have systematically been removed from the Fifth Ward and from which was designed to be a majority Black community and is now one of the most diverse collections of individuals and demographics in our city, that they're consistently denied having their needs met and having institutions in their neighborhood. And that is a neglect not just by our district, not by us around the table. That is long-term historical issue that's decades long. So we have this 4 to 5 year conversation that's been suppressed, alongside a conversation that has been suppressed and systematic dismantling of a community's institutions over decades, and a complete ignoring of the cries of frustration and anger and pain, including losing a vote by a small amount for a school. So I think that this is a difficult conversation for us to have as a board. It's definitely a difficult conversation for me as an individual and as a Black woman. So I'm really excited about how visionary this proposal is. I think that it's significantly improved over probably than what it would have been 4 to 5 years ago, due to the amount of institutional knowledge that's been gained, but also having board input, having community input. It's better, it's improved, and I think it could be a really exciting opportunity. And I think we certainly need to continue engaging in the conversation through an equity lens, and we may need to do some restorative work around this proposal for many people in our community who have felt harmed, and especially for those folks who have less of an opportunity to have their voices heard. And I think that we need to give more than lip service to our conversation about the Fifth Ward School. We can't just say that it's important, we're going to talk about it. We need to actually talk about it. We need to have a place that we're going to talk about it. We need to have a committee of folks who are coming together to talk about it. We need to think about and explain to our community what is the staffing model that we're going to have that's going to support us thinking more broadly about Black student learning. And so that's where I am in this discussion. I'm having a hard time with it, and that's just my honest place right now. Thank you.
Now, I just want to echo what you said, and you know, I do support, you know, exploring as a board a fifth ward option, and also looking at our hiring practice in regards to district leadership. Again, I think we do need somebody that knows, you know, the Black community, right? And I think we have plenty of talent, you know, within District 65. Again, I mentioned earlier the MSAC committee. You know, we have very talented, you know, Black teachers, and that could take the helm to be a director of Black student achievement. And again, working as part of the equity team that we already have, to really put a laser focus on Black student achievement. And again, somebody could be colleague to Amy, and they can have those conversations about, you know, Black and Brown student achievement. So again, not only having the physical building supports, but also the staffing supports to ensure that you know, Black student achievement is looked at in a way that it's culturally relevant and responsive. And again, I just echo your concerns, and again, something that, again, we can look at this as a template to work on, and look at that conversation that we're going to have around Fifth Ward, and just, you know, sort of trying to improve and better, you know, Black student outcomes.
One thing that I forgot, I'm sorry, and because this is an emotional conversation for me, it's hard to keep track of every single thought, but one of the things that we talked about, and then I think I also emailed about today is I think it's really important not just to have a stakeholder group of teachers that contribute to thinking about the transition, but a stakeholder of community and parents group to communicate about the transition. There's a lot of value and power clearly in the Bessie Rose community that has been able to come together in a short time to express very clearly their opinions, to come up with surveys and presentations. They have knowledge and gifts to contribute, and I hope that regardless of what moves forward, that you all's gifts will still be a part of the Bessie Rose community. But I think that there would be a great deal of value in including our community and parent voices, and frankly our student voices in this transition. We can't presume to know everything that folks need, but we have a community that's capable of communicating with us if we seek them out. I think we're capable of doing that.
So before I add my comments and questions, I did want to offer Dr. Beardsley the opportunity to sit down. You've been standing for a long time, so please have a seat.
We had a bet how long she would sit.
I know. We won't keep you up there for that much longer. I did want to, I wanted to address the report from parents. And again, I agree. It clearly represents a lot of time and a lot of talent to put this together. First, the proposal, there are a lot of similarities, frankly, to the proposal for the Fifth Ward School 5 years ago, including making it a community school, including having TWE at the school. So, it brings back some of the memories of having worked on that. I would emphasize that even had that referendum passed, the new school would not have been ready for students until the 2015-16 school year. So there would still be what I would consider an unacceptable delay between having that vision for the Fifth Ward School and our current need to expand TWE. So there is that, I think there's a lot more thought and planning that clearly this board, and I think this administration, is committed to doing around options for Fifth Ward families. But that's separate from our need to discuss and move on TWE, which, as has been mentioned several times, has been something that has been on our radar for at least, since I started on the board 4 years ago. The other thing, with respect to the survey of parents, which, the information, I guess I would just offer, is incomplete. I understand there were 127 respondents. I don't know how many families that represents, how many students that represents. I don't know how many families there are currently at Bessie Rhodes. So while I appreciate what it does, the voice it does represent, I think there is significant concern about the voice it doesn't represent. And so I think we need to be honest about what the limitations of this survey are. I also think, to Anya's point about getting stakeholder feedback, this is a conversation that continues beyond our vote on December 4th. I think, and part of, getting the transition, to keeping educators at the school during the transition, to keeping families during the transition, is to make sure that we hear their voice about what they need during that transition. And I've heard nothing but support for that idea from this team up here. So I am confident that this team will move forward with the Bessie Rhodes family and educator community to make sure that that transition, which will not be without any pain, but to minimize that pain and as much as possible, and to turn the conversation toward the exciting opportunities for the school. I think that we saw some initial thought about how TWE can support global studies, and I'm excited about the additional, not just thought, but financial support that's going to go into merging that, or thinking more intentionally about how TWE is going to support global studies. I think there is, I truly appreciate, no one's mentioned yet, but I think it is fantastic, this continued support for Mandarin. That's something significantly that we heard from parents throughout this process that they wanted to continue Mandarin. I do have a question about it. So is the idea that Mandarin will continue even as TWE rolls up?
It would be to maintain the foreign language model as is, and Mandarin would remain as and then as the TWE strands grew up, it would be all Mandarin, no Spanish, because you're getting your school day in Spanish. So Mandarin Mandarin remains at Bessie Rhodes. We do not pull Mandarin at all.
I cannot tell you how fantastic that is. Frankly, I thought the best we could hope for was that to continue Mandarin for the existing students and then phase it out. So to hear that there's a commitment to keeping Mandarin as part of the TWE curriculum is incredible. So thank you for that. I hope that the Bessie Rhodes community can understand what an amazing commitment that is.
We found a model school, a school that is doing something very similar locally. So I had a conversation with that leader as well to begin that conversation.
So thank you to Stacy and to Amy for hearing that concern, hearing our suggestions on that, and finding a way to make that happen. That only makes me more excited of the possibility. And I understand that currently as our TWE classrooms, the demographics may not be exactly what we want, especially because we are not in the 50-50 compliance. But I think we really have an opportunity here with this global studies focus, with continuing to offer Mandarin, to really look at that 50% English speaking and really keep it a diverse, a more diverse population than maybe we have at our other TWE schools. So I hope we can shift the conversation to what's really exciting about this proposal. And there is a lot that is really exciting for incoming students and I think for existing families. I also want to just really thank you for giving more explanation of the thought process behind how Bessie Rhodes was selected over other sites. I think that was a missing piece in the puzzle for community members, and I think frankly for us to better understand what that thinking was. And it makes a lot of sense, and I appreciated having it so that I could look at it, and I hope that the community appreciates that as well. I don't know that I have much else to say except thank you for listening to the feedback. Thank you for incorporating it. Thank you for the commitment to continue the conversation and incorporating the feedback. I think this is an exciting opportunity for our district to have. We've heard all of the advantages of the wall-to-wall TWE school, and I think this is an exciting opportunity.
If I may, a couple quick comments. One, I really appreciate this last conversation because it summarizes the last several weeks, and I too want to salute the community members, the family members, because we're sitting at this really important intersection of making some tough decisions, and these are emotional decisions, and these are heartfelt decisions, and so I, again, appreciate each and every person who's come forward, the energy that's been brought forward by community members. I want to thank each of the board members individually and then collectively, because this too is an important and engaging process that leads to a tough decision and an emotional decision. So to wear that on your sleeves is the only way we as an institution get better. I want to say that where I started tonight, the idea of serving, the commitment to serve families of the Fifth Ward, to respond to the concerns and needs is one that I have, and I'd like to work with board leadership on next steps. We're engaging in a conversation around the issue of how do we really work to accelerate the achievement of Black students in the district, as well as other students, but our Black students. And with that, what's the best way to position a player to be that sort of point person? I truly do not want to create a siloed position where we have the person sitting down here at the end of the hall who's working on, fill in the blank, but working on Black student achievement, and then the rest of us aren't, because the rest of us are. And so what we're doing, we're reaching out into the community, we're going to interview a few of the board members, we're going to go look at some models nationally, and then when I come back during the budget season, which will be in mid to late January, we'll have a proposal that we can move forward. I want to finally say and combine all this, and I want to talk about my colleague Stacy Beardsley. because when we sit at a table like this, or when parents sit out in the community and bring their emotion, what you see from Stacy is the highest level of professional, who also has brought more than a ton of emotion to this work. And it's all of her colleagues who've been sitting around, and all of you, I hope, recognize, but I recognize. And so that what Stacy has brought with Amy and with the rest of the team, and with going night in and night out and being responsive as best she can as a human being who stood up for 5 hours one meeting. But that intersection of emotion and care and professionalism is what we need in District 65 and what we have in Stacy. And I just want to salute the work that she does day in and day out, because she cares. She just cares so much. And I just want to thank you for all the service that you've done.
One more thing that I just wanted to put on your plate, and I also don't want to wait because I'm not going to be here on December 4th. I think that I don't know where it belongs in the proposal or where it belongs in thinking, but how do we think about having a racially and ethnically diverse staff in the staffing population, and how do we maintain that? It sounds like there's a value there that we need, that we're seeking to have in our district, and that we haven't perfected in other places. So how do we capture what's at Bessie Rhodes and continue that as we pursue the transition? Because I think it's really important for folks to be learning in a culturally relevant way from people from lots of different backgrounds, as opposed to having technical knowledge, but actual personal experience and knowledge to bring to their teaching. So I didn't want to forget to bring that up.
Thank you. And then with that, we will move on. Stacy and Jamila.
Keep standing.
You can continue to sit, it's up to you. But on our summer school, taking a first look at summer school offerings.
Good evening.
Good evening. Do you want us to wait, Adila, or should we go ahead?
No, go right ahead, sorry.
I know you've had a very tough evening, so in light of all of the energy that I know you've already expended, we will move expeditiously through the report. I know that you have received not only the summer learning report, but all the reports from the partners as well. Before we even get started into the report, I do want to acknowledge all of the teams of people that it takes to bring the summer learning experience together. Of course, we have our buildings and grounds staff, the business office, the curriculum department, special services, early childhood, health services, nutrition services, human resources, payroll, RAD, technology, transportation, and of course, representatives from all the buildings. So all of those people are involved in the little 19-page report that you have here. We have some great coordination going and collaborative communication as well within the district as well as with our partners. The first page indicates the 6 guiding principles that we use as criteria to determine what kind of summer programming we want to enact. And the next page talks about all of our wonderful partners. You know that our programming includes some academic programming. We have our extended year programming, which is required support for our students who have individualized education programs. We also have that same kind of support in the early childhood program through SPAC, and we get students ready for kindergarten in the Jump Start program. We have support for our students who are new to the country, less than 2 years, in the newcomer program, and you're very familiar with our support of the algebra program. So those are the district programs that are academic programs that are listed on page 2. And of course, we have our hugest partner in the YMCA who assists us with the Y Readers and Power Scholars. And of course, you have a report on that as well. In addition to the academic programs, by the way, all the academic programs are staffed with certified, licensed staff teachers. In the partner programs, we actually send licensed teachers to many of the partner efforts so that there's a very high quality experience complementing what they do as well. In the Evanston Public Library, we had the Input-Output program that was designed by Renee Newmeyer and Kelly Rooney. At Family Focus, we had drama experiences as well as STEM experiences. At Fleetwood Jourdain, we had the game-based learning. Of course, there's a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School, the Metamedia, the Shark Tank with the Inventions, and of course, YOU. Those are the partner enrichment programs. And of course, we have our summer reading programs, our rising first graders, also mentioned, acknowledged as D65 Kindergarten, the program that started it all, Foundation 65, and we started a new program. We changed what we did for our rising second graders. We partnered with the Evanston Public Library, and one of the most exciting things is that we had 17 of the 19 families that responded to our survey said they were more likely to participate in the library program based on the experience that they had this summer. So all of those programming ideas are detailed on page 2 of your report. As we move on to get some of the other highlights, on pages 3 through 7, you get all of the enrollment facts that we served over 1,500 students, that over 75% of those students in the partner programs increased or maintained as readers, and 58% of them increased or maintained in their mathematics proficiency. I do want to lift up that there was, in my learning how to use pivot tables, I did a little crazy math, so we will give you some corrected numbers for the summer reading program, and they will include for the District 65 readers, the Foundation 65 program, and the summer library learning program. So they will look much better than the ones that are in your current report. But in all the students did show some tremendous growth in that area. The financial details are on pages 11 through 13 of your report. Spent over $500,000 supporting our students, but they need it and it was wisely invested, and we believe that it's money well spent. So those are the details. The graph just shows the wide range of students that are supported in our summer programs. That we have 41% of our Black students, 4% of the Asians, 28% Hispanic, 8% that identify as multiracial, and 18% that identify as white are supported in the summer programs, and you can see the SES breakdown there as well. So that is the overview of all of the reports that you've given. Our partners are not here. We didn't know that it was going to be a late agenda item. Normally they come and flank the presentation. The partners work tremendously well. It is a wealth of collaboration to provide the wide range of supports that we have. So we're very fortunate to have all the people who invest time and energy to make sure that our students have a great experience in the summer. Are there any questions about what has happened in the 2017 Summer Learning Program?
I'm just going to interject. We do have one partner with us. We do have Diane LaGuarre from Foundation 65. And so Foundation 65 helps us support the MSX Shark Tank program we partner with the Y. That's a 3-partnership program, and clearly is the grounding force that's created our summer reading programs over time and has been a very strong partner in supporting our summer learning and other activities in District 65.
Thank you. Any questions about 2017?
I don't think so. Want to move on to...
Wonderful. All right. So the 2018 proposal is strongly based on what we did in 2017. You well know that the funding is decreased, so we had to make some hard choices. There were some reductions that we did have to make. What we did was we looked at the programming and how well it aligned with our guiding principles. We also looked at our capacity to fill the seats in each of the programs, and those were the main 2 factors that we considered in terms of what should we continue to fund. Largely, we're funding much of what we did to some degree with a few lesser dollars. The Evanston Public Library STEM program was eliminated, and I think we have 1 less teacher for Jumpstart. We have 1 less teacher for Fleetwood, and pretty much other than that, all the programs are intact. Right. So that will be our proposal for summer 2018, and we look forward to.
Needless to say, there's the lion's share of resources are really put into reading and the importance of reading during the summer and fighting the reading loss, but also engaging kids. And that's both the programs that we have here along with the Foundation 65 programs.
Are there any questions about what's being proposed for summer 2018?
What's the plan for notifying families about these opportunities? I know, so one of the things that when you get to Evanston, you got to kind of figure out, when the sign-up season is, right? For some programs, you have to literally, if you're not signed up by January or February, you're out of luck. What are we doing to really engage, and particularly those families who, again, aren't able to advocate, but what's our plan to kind of promote these programs and in a timely manner so they know when to apply and then take advantage of these great opportunities?
So this is the first step. Thank you again for including this report in your November presentation so that you can make your decision in December. Once you say yes, we get going with our enrollment process. We have a plan to have a liaison in each one of the buildings that will give some really intensified support to making sure that students are identified and enrolled in the programs that are appropriate for them.
I think a quick note too is that for these particular programs, we identify students that we think will most benefit from these programs, and then we make direct contact with those families.
Yeah, because the plan is if we identify when the February conferences roll around, that's a time when we do a lot of confirming, but as you mentioned, January is the time when the other programs sign up, so we like to be able to let people know that this opportunity is going to be available to. Let me mention one other thing too, because sometimes we get some feedback about the fact that our programming is not on the website. That is by design, because this is not a sign-up event. This is one where the educators in the building look at the needs of the students and they invite the students who will most need the support rather than kind of advertising it and letting interested parties, because we have a lot of great programming and it would fill up instantly if it was a first come, first served type of opportunity.
Then would we be able to consider also including in this information with liaisons that'll be imparting among families, some of the programs that are offered through, I don't know if I saw it here, maybe I missed it. Some of the City of Evanston camp programs. I know there was a mention of Camp Echo, and I know there's scholarships for folks to go to Camp Echo, which is great. I wish I could get one of those. It's expensive, but I heard it's an incredible experience. But again, making sure that we do a survey of just about every program that's out there. I see that we've got all the partners there pretty much, so just making sure that we get every single piece of opportunity that's out there for kids to take advantage of, and families. And also, again, thinking about what programs are available for parents. So, ESL or job training, right? So not only thinking about just kids, but also their parents and families who might want to take advantage of some opportunities as well.
So you're lifting up one of our ongoing areas of opportunity. We've been working for some time now with the City of Evanston, Cradle to Career, talking about how do we identify all the different opportunities that there are this summer. There's still some bugs to be worked out, but that is definitely something that is on our plate.
One of the great things of Cradle to Career has been the engagement of our colleagues and friends over at Evanston's Parks and Rec. So Lawrence Hemingway has done wonderful work, and in their camps across the board, they have 20 minutes, a half an hour where they drop everything and read. So you can be at sports camp, sailing camp, whatever camp you're in, arts camp, and there's a reading component part so that the kids stay engaged in their reading. And I think that's actually part of the seamless nature that we're trying to do across the institutions in Evanston.
A couple of quick questions. The first is around Foundation 65's program, and that is, I just want to make sure I fully understand. And that program is fully funded by the foundation, and that's why it's not included in the 2018 plan, correct? Okay. Thank you for doing that, Foundation 65. The second question I had is around unmet demand, and if we have an understanding of I think last year we served 1,518 students, it's right there. Were there more that we could have served, but we didn't have the resources to serve them?
Well, always. There are always more students to serve than we have resources to serve. The challenge also that we have with that is that we want to make sure that when we are enrolling students in programs, that we're enrolling them in a program that's the fit for their need. We're not just trying to fill the seats. We want to fill the seats with the students who will benefit the most from that combination of services that are there.
And it seems like, most of our services, like Dr. Gordon, you mentioned, and that I noticed in the report, are focused on literacy. But looking at the Illinois State Report Card, and I know that our district is not alone in this, that there seems to be a significant lag in performance for math. And I want to make sure that we are not retrofitting the demand based on what programs are available, but that we're making sure that we're creating and serving programs that will have the most potential benefit long-term, if that makes sense.
So the Y Power Scholars program is reading and mathematics, while the Y Reader program focuses on reading.
So my question really is, are there a lot of students who would really significantly benefit from a math program, but that we don't know that they exist because we don't have a program, so we're not trying to identify who those students are? I just want to make sure that we're not just so laser focused into a rabbit hole on the trite topic of literacy. I mean, I understand and appreciate the importance of it. But
yes, I understand what you're saying. Yes.
Thank you.
I think, where we are right now, the guiding principles really do focus on early grades and on literacy, and we see early literacy as also being an access point and pathway for early success and early numeracy as well. And so, we have seen significant cuts in our state funds that previously funded these programs, and so we've needed to pull back. And the fact we managed to only have to cut 30,000 is really, a phenomenal statement to the district's commitment to summer learning, because we've lost over $300,000 in state grant money that used to fund this. I think where we are is, and based on the weight of priorities and what we see in the very significant achievement gap for our youngest students, our priority in that area right now is well placed. And we've got some other things that we really are trying and working on in the space of math, and we're going to be interested to see what happens with the district-wide adoption of ST Math this year, in addition to that complements the everyday math curriculum we're using, and seeing if there are other things that we're doing in some of those spaces that might have some impact on the math.
My third grader loves ST Math, for the record.
That's good.
How do we measure these gains? Every single program has a different measurement. So when you say 75% and 58%, what does that mean?
What we did was for the students for whom we had fall and spring and fall data, that's where those numbers come from. We looked at either their DRA scores or their MAP scores if they're in intermediate classes. So that's how we measured those academic gains. But I do want to point out that some of the partner programs say that academics alone is not really their focus, but we feel that it's valuable to see if there's any influence, if there's students who are sustaining their position or increasing their position.
And the programs at times we use our spring and fall assessment to determine whether students have maintained or gained in literacy or math, depending on the primary focus of the program. The partner programs, in some cases, use their own forms of assessment as well, beginning and end. And some of that's reflected in their reports.
Right, so yeah, I noticed that some of them have more in-depth data and some of them really don't. So I was curious how we get that figure, so thank you. As far as attendance, so there's, these programs vary in attendance, and how do we ensure that the students that need it the most are getting into the programs that are longer, for longer duration over the summer?
Attendance actually is one of the criteria that is often considered when we're enrolling students. If there's an attendance issue, if there's a concern that the student won't take advantage of the program, then the slot might be given to somebody who we believe will take advantage of the program. But in addition to that, staff they'll track the kids down if there's an attendance issue. In the on-site academic programs, the students are registered as they are in the regular school year, and we have attendance reports for all of those students.
So is that an attendance record that we keep?
Yes.
And then the providers report to us, this person's not showing up, and then we say, well, we have this other person on a list.
No, so in the Y Reader program, all the academic programs, we monitor attendance just like we do during the regular school year. Attendance is taken every day. The health clerk will call home if a student isn't there. Generally, by the time the children are in the program, we're not making those kinds of switches because, you know, it's only going to be 6 weeks, so we need you to start with the program. But we do consider that if we're looking at a student saying, is this student going to take full advantage of this program, or do we think their attendance is going to be spotty and they need something that's going to be different?
Okay. And just the last thing is we're talking about children who need additional support, and that's how they're being recommended. I would just be curious, and Sergio already mentioned this already, what type of parent engagement is incorporated into the summer programming?
So different programs based on the program design. For example, with the newcomer program, there's a strong parental engagement. There are parent classes that are also part of that program. The summer reading programs directly involve the families, their family orientations, meetings during the summer. So those programs are designed to include the families. So depending on the program design, there's sometimes, you know, some and sometimes great parent involvement.
Right. I'd just be curious, like, how the district is utilizing that for our own selfish purposes. So I know I'm very familiar with many of these programs, and I know that they have a parental engagement component for the work that they do. So my question is, how are we maximizing that for the work that we do with students and continuing learning and incorporating parent engagement when it comes to like district work?
Well, we of course want to maintain those relationships, initialize them or maintain them to make sure that the parents are always partnering with us in supporting the students in their ongoing learning. So it's not just for the summer, it's an ongoing thing.
Right.
I think there are things that we can learn from our partners in regards to some of the things that they do around engagement. And I think one of the nice benefits is that a number of the programs are staffed with District 65 teachers. And frequently they'll come back, and just in a recent conversation with a couple of the individuals through Y Readers talked about the high level of parent engagement in the summer and some of the types of activities that they did do in order to engage the parents. And so I think there's opportunities, one, through the staffing understanding models and bringing ideas back to the school, and us talking to partners about different ways in which they have found to successfully engage the families in ways that we don't. So
Okay.
I think there are lessons
I'd just
for
be
us to
curious
learn.
if these families know that they're part of a district initiative and they're not, part of like individual siloed initiatives that are getting recognized by the individual.
The registration process is really, the schools are highly involved in passing the families to the partner organizations in most of these cases, and certainly in all programs where we have a significant investment. And so I think they I would need to ask, but my conjecture is that they understand that these programs are connected to and aligned to District 65, but I think they also then connect with, I think families understand they're connected. They also go to our schools for the programs. And so I think they see them probably as intersecting opportunities that come from intersecting entities. But we would have to look into that and really understand it. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. I just see that as an opportunity to better connect our parent community to the work that we do at the district level.
Agreed. It's a good point.
Thank you for this. I think the only question that I have, and understanding this is a first read, and given the lateness of the hour, there might be additional questions or comments when we take a look at this again in December. But one thing, given the reduction in funding that we have available for this, how is that translating? And I'm sorry if it was in the report and I just missed it. How is that translating? Like, are we serving fewer students? Like, how does that correlate?
So we eliminated one partnership with the Evanston Public Library, but we didn't have a large number of students enrolled in that program, and there are opportunities to enroll those students in some other programs, so that's one thing. When we looked at the proposal that, for example, Family Focus Centers, they're doing some redesign, so it's not really going to impact fewer students in that way. So I don't think that we're going to serve dramatically less students. It'll just be in a redesigned focus fashion.
And then kind of a corollary to that, I know in past years, we've had shown interest in, we know that a lot of our partners, especially because they are getting funding to serve Title I students, but we have a significant number of students with needs who don't attend Title I schools. And so we've made some specific tweaks to our summer learning to address that. And so I guess to the extent that there is any decrease in students served, I don't know how that correlates to whether they are students who are served at a Title I school or not, or if we're paying any specific attention to making sure that we're maximizing the opportunities for all of our students who have needs, whether they're at a Title I school or not. So yeah, there's a need to be a specific answer to that, but just something to keep in mind as we're moving forward with it, I think. Okay, with that.
I do want to encourage, I know it's a long way from summer, but we'll remind you to come to this room when Foundation 65 sets up their book distribution center. It is so fabulous to come to one of our schools and look at the YMCA reading programs. The kids think they're in camp, and we think they're in school, and it's a really lovely mixture. Or to come to Metamedia or somewhere else, and we'll choreograph that in the months ahead, but it's really a fantastic opportunity to see how we work together with our community partners to do good work during the summer.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Dr. Pitts and Dr. Beardsley. Just to wrap up, does anybody have any committee reports or upcoming work to discuss? No? We have, in addition to our regular board meeting next month, and finance, we do have our first policy committee of the, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think there's been some, the community members have talked about maybe discussing the dress code policy, so we would like maybe ask the administration to, queue that up for us, and also our transgender safe school policy as well. I think we might have a look at that if we can get that queued up for that conversation as well.
And I think I would add too, we've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of months as a board and with cabinet around board agreements. So we probably will add that to the agenda to take a look at what we've drafted currently and what we will be drafting in the next couple of weeks, as well as maybe taking an initial look at some policies that maybe we've implemented over the years that we need to take another look at regarding the purview role that we've been discussing extensively in our retreats.
At one point, we had been talking about looking at how our focus on restorative practices and social emotional learning under the guise of our discipline policies, how those values are incorporated. So I think that taking a look at whatever policies are informing our student handbook and ensuring that it represents those values, and that we begin a discussion about that would be helpful.
Thank you for that reminder. Yes, I think that's an important one. So look for a full docket for the policy committee meeting. And then we have some FYI items. If there is anything else? If there is nothing else before the board, I adjourn this meeting at 10:05 p.m.
Happy holiday.
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.